Five Nights at Freddy's is a 2014 horror game created by Scott Cawthon. I hope you're not one of those people who have an irrational hatred of long videos, especially a long video that critically analyzes a piece of art, because you're in for one of those today or this week, depending on how long it takes you to finish this. Now, to get a bit of an understanding of some parts of this game, it might be worth giving that quick backstory of why this game exists that most of you probably know already. Scott Cawthon, the solo creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, also made a bunch of other games before Five Nights at Freddy's, which we only know because he made Five Nights at Freddy's, as none of them were successful. One of these old games was about some happy furry beaver guys called Chipper and Son Sardine Bait and Tackle. According to Scott in an interview, he was feeling sad that people thought the main character looked like a scary animatronic animal. There are animatronic beavers in the game, but none of those are the main characters, so I guess Scott was sad that people also thought Kaizir was an animatronic too.
You may notice the dead, terrifying, soulless eyes of the background characters. That's a signature of Chip and whatever the fuck it was called. I like to think that Chipper here, the little fellow, is just forcing these other beavers to chop forever against their will. They want to die.
After letting the criticism live rent-free in his head, he eventually realized that if people think his happy game is scary, he should just make a horror game. Imagine how different his career might have been if people found these furry characters sexy instead. Well, I mean, back then. On June 14th, 2014, this trailer was released on Scott Cawthon's YouTube channel promoting this new spooky game of his. In the description, he calls it a gameplay trailer, which isn't true. We hear some kids cheering at Freddy, who's in front of a spotlight doing that. It kind of looks like he's been cornered in an alley by the police. And we get a shot of them singing, I think. I mean, I'd probably expect words to be coming out of their mouths if they were singing. Fun fact, there's a black mark on Freddy's hand. It doesn't show up on anyone else's hand or his other hand or even this hand in the future, so I think it's some kind of error with the model, which I find funny because this shot of the band shows up in many other places. We then get some trailer text and some camera footage of the restaurant. Like I said, the description calls this a gameplay trailer, and while this isn't, I guess this passes the AAA trailer test, showing footage that resembles gameplay but isn't. Limited power, limited visibility, limited time. I don't know why limited time is presented as an uh-oh spooky moment when in the context of the game, running out of time means you win. Then we get shots of Bonnie standing in the hallway, and then running, and then removing his face. Those last two of which would have been really cool to see in the game that this trailer is advertising. This is a bad gameplay trailer as there's no gameplay. Maybe if you called it a cinematic trailer, it would have been better and accurate. Also, each time something happens in the trailer, there's a scare cue. I assume the intended effect of which is to make you shit your pants. Kind of starts to lose its effect a bit after it's played for the 50th time. Also, because I'm a Generation Z gamer boy, I can't help but make a small little edit to this trailer to fit my personal standards. Anyway, from that trailer we can gather that this is a game where you look at security cameras and try to see things. Also, limited power comes into that equation somewhere, hopefully not in a shoehorned way that makes no sense and isn't explained. Anyway, now that I'm done with that, let's talk about the game this trailer was advertising. Beautiful. Took us long enough to actually launch this thing. Thankfully, unlike the trailer, the game is in 16:9. Would have been really weird playing a 4:3 game in the year 2014, but thankfully we don't have to worry about that. Ever. Before this title screen, we get a slightly off-center disclaimer warning us that this game contains flashing lights, loud noises, and lots of jump scares. You know, as opposed to like 2. This title screen is a pretty decent start. We see a staticky screen with a barely visible Freddy in the darkness, fidgeting around, all paired with some ominous stock music. There's a difference between a song that's trying to be scary and a song that's just fitting a scary atmosphere. A scary song could try to invoke those feelings if you're just on their own by sounding really weird and unnatural. The song in Freddy's isn't trying to do that. It's more of a fitting song with the same creepy tone, which adds to the more subtle building of tension this title screen is likely trying to pull off before you start, rather than trying to scare you on its own. It's trying to get you in the mood, like a spooky version of foreplay. It's a decent title screen. Unironically, one of the best parts of the game. Though I wish there were any options at all aside from euthanasia. Maybe have some graphical settings, because you need to hold the key on launch to get this game to run in windowed mode. Subtitles would also be good, because there's dialogue in this game that comes out of a phone, which is the opposite of a high clarity microphone. Something interesting that I don't consider a flaw, but just a weird thing worth noting about this title screen is that you can click continue without even starting a new game. I deleted my previous save for this video, and for all the game knows, I've never played it before. The only difference in clicking continue over a new game is that you don't get the newspaper at the start. I guess the ability to continue from no new game is some programming quirk with the engine this game was built in. Or in case you suck so much ass that you end up dying on the first night, but I don't know why the option would be there before you start a new game. Also, when starting the game, each night begins with the time 12 a.m. and then the night number. It's not like we start at any other time in the game, so it seems kind of redundant. Why is this here? Well, I can't confirm this, but perhaps it's a leftover of some kind. In an older version of the game Scott showed off on his YouTube channel, there seemed to be a multiple lives mechanic. How did this work? I don't know, but my guess is that if you died during a night, let's say 3 a.m., and you lost a life, it would take you back to the title screen and let you continue at 3 a.m. And this screen would likely say 3 a.m. But since Scott removed the mechanic, each time you start or continue a night, it always says 12 a.m. That's my best explanation as to why it's here. But hey, that's just a theory. Anyway, rewinding back a bit, when starting a new game, you're presented with the previously mentioned context. This newspaper ad for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Fazbear Entertainment is very resourceful, reusing the screenshot from the trailer. Family Pizzeria looking for a security guard to work the night shift, 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. Monitor cameras, ensure safety of equipment and animatronic characters. Not responsible for injuries/dismemberment, $120 a week. To apply, call 1555-FAZBEAR. Okay, so as we can see, Freddy's is one of those places where someone just stays all night looking at the cameras the whole time. Not sure if $4 an hour is really worth that, even in the early 90s, as for most of the decade, minimum wage was more than that. Also, I've never seen a business phone number be that long before. I mean, 1-555-Fazbear was right there. Whatever. Anyway, you're a security guard monitoring cameras. That's the reason you're here. Got that? Good. Let's talk about the game. Actually, no, let's not do that yet. Before we get into the main game proper, talking about the first Freddy's game nowadays seems a bit hard to do at first. Maybe because of all the games after it. Oh fuck. There has been so much stuff made up after the first Freddy's that is not taken into consideration by the first Freddy's at all. Scott himself has even said that despite knowing that what happens in this game is just a small part of a bigger story.
But I definitely knew that the story I was telling in the first game was a small snippet of a larger story, even if I didn't have all the details of that story fleshed out yet.
He did not have everything planned out from the beginning, and honestly, why would he?
So when you were making Five Nights at Freddy's 1, were you already planning on making a sequel? Or any other ideas what were flinging in your head on what to do?
I definitely left a lot of things open-ended, in case I wanted to expand upon them later. I mean, obviously, I did not have the entire story planned out, as I know there's much debate about that on the subreddit. It's like, he's some kind of mad genius that had, 7 games planned out from the beginning. No, I didn't.
So for the sake of being fair, I'm just going to be looking at this first game within the context that it's just this game. I'll use footage from future games to help visualize what I'm saying, and for variety, I'll sometimes compare craft by seeing how well some ideas are done in one game versus another, and I'll probably crack a joke here or there about future events in the timeline, but I'll try to not use something retconned by later games as a reason as to why something done here is bad. When I eventually start talking about the later games, which I will try to live long enough to do, I will use older games in the discussion and will mention if anything retroactively ruins something or fixes something, but I don't think it's reasonable to critique the first Freddy's as if Scott had the whole thing planned out. It'd be like critiquing any Star Wars movie from before 2018 for not doing this shit. That's the fault of future work. We should bully the future work for that. Also, when I was making this video, the movie came out. Isn't that a thing? I don't want to see any of you gremlins in the comments saying that something in this game makes sense because the movie did something or whatever. Even though, honestly, the movie and the game barely have anything to do with each other. I mean, it shares characters and a general similarity in terms of plot, but it's not like you see Mike in the movie trying to conserve power by having doors down for only a certain amount of time, because that'd probably make the movie even stupider than it already is. So, with that out of the way, let's begin. For real this time. Actually, no, one more thing before I begin. I want to introduce you all to my backdrop. Welcome to the main office, the thing you'll be staring at super frequently because the game pretty much forces you to. You're looking at so much that you'll likely start to wonder, why does this room have these weird looking pixels that make it look like a cone? Also, you'd probably think that this game about looking at security camera displays would use any of these monitors for a practical purpose. But you thought wrong, moron. Also, I'm obliged to mention the Freddy poster up here. If you click Freddy's nose, it makes a honk. That's cute, but unfortunately that doesn't work for the versions of this poster you can buy in real life. While I'm here, I should also mention the vertical sync. I'm not sure if this will affect everyone, but it affected me on like 2 separate computers. When moving left and right, there's often a strip somewhere on the screen that struggles to keep up with the rest of the game. Each time you flip the camera, the strip changes places. It doesn't show up in the OBS recording I did for this video, so I guess that's fortunate, but luckily I have the footage recorded from a capture card so you can see it in action at least. It's not a massive issue at all, it's just slightly annoying. Now, moving on, at the start of each night, you get a phone call from the phone on the desk. Alleged phone on the desk.
I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. I actually worked in that office before you. I'm finishing up my last week now, as a matter of fact, so I know it can be a bit overwhelming, but I'm here to tell you there's nothing to worry about.
All we really know about this mystery person is that he's also a night shift worker. We don't really know how high up in the company he is or even what his name is. Not that we really need to. Everyone calls him Phone Guy, so sure, fine, fuck it, I'll call him that too.
I wanted to record a message for you.
Is it possible to send a phone message to the same phone you're using to make that message a week into the future?
I actually worked in that office before you.
It is a genuine question. I couldn't find an answer to this. Anyway, after letting us know that he's recording a message for us, telling us that there's nothing to worry about, he then gives Fazbear's introductory greeting.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for damage to property or person. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached.
Okay. Freddy's, upon discovering that you've been injured or have died, will file a missing person report after they finish cleaning the restaurant. Why? I don't know, seems rather pointless. I have a feeling this line relates to the whole missing children thing, implying that the children that go missing die. But I'm not exactly sure whose idea was it at Freddy's to file missing persons reports on dead people in their restaurant. It's not like people going missing at your restaurant is that much better than people dying at your restaurant in the public's eye.
Now that might sound bad, I know, but there's really nothing to worry about.
This is now the second time he said this.
There's nothing to worry about.
And immediately after, he talks about something you should worry about.
The animatronic characters here do get a bit quirky at night, but do I blame them? No.
Luckily for the animatronics though, Phone Guy doesn't blame him for getting quirky.
If I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years...
Notice how Phone Guy implied that these animatronics have been around for 20 years. I wonder how retconned that line is going to become in future games.
So remember, these characters hold a special place in the hearts of children, and we need to show them a little respect.
So that line kind of explains why you can't just destroy them for your safety or otherwise fight back physically. Think of the children, you heartless piece of shit. I guess it's a good thing our main player character follows that line of logic and doesn't, at the very least, try fighting back in the slightest when he's about to fucking die.
So just be aware, the characters do tend to wander a bit. They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. Something about their servos locking up if they get turned off for too long. They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too, but then there was the bite of 87.
Uh-oh. That doesn't make sense. This is the only direct explanation we have for why our enemies walk specifically. And this explanation can raise several questions, and none of them are good. Okay, so why are they set to a free roam mode at night? Right, their servos will lock up if they're turned off. That's the words he used.
Something about their servos locking up if they get turned off for too long.
Okay, then why aren't they just set to the mode they're set to during the day? Phone Guy says that they're left in a free roaming mode at night. He also says that they used to be able to walk around during the day as well before the bite of 87.
They're left in some kind of free roaming mode at night. They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too. But then there was the bite of 87.
The bite?
Yeah.
But they're still around, or at least there are still animatronic entertainers. So obviously they can be set to a mode that isn't free roaming, but is still on. Like, for example, a performance mode where they pretend to play instruments like we saw in the trailer. Either that or the robots just do nothing during the day, which, no. So, yet again, why are they switched to a free roam mode at night? Phone Guy said their servos lock up if they're turned off for too long, but that doesn't mean let them roam around the restaurant. Just keep them in whatever mode you keep them in during the day and they won't go around trying to kill people. If them being in performance mode all night also causes their servos to lock up, then maybe Phone Guy should have said that instead. Plus, what's stopping them from technically being in free roaming mode but bolting them to the floor? It's not like you actually want these things to be walking around. Where they need to move their legs for 6 hours every night or else their entire body will shut down, even though they're fine for the other 3/4 of the day. Also, Freddy and Foxy don't really move frequently in the early nights. Unless you run out of power, Freddy will never move until night 3, but he's still fine by the end of the week, and looking at the camera prevents Foxy from moving completely. Yet if you keep him from moving for a whole day, he's still fine the next day. Also, Foxy's literally out of order. Why is he on? If his servos do lock up, fix it while doing the other repairs you're doing on him. Assuming you're supposed to believe this explanation by Phone Guy, it's terrible and it makes no sense, even within its own fictional rules. It's actually so bad that it makes me wonder if it was intentional, to maybe try to encourage you to find a second paranormal explanation, which we'll go over later. Thank you for the most subtle foreshadowing award. I deserve it. Next up, the bite of 87.
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too, but then there was the bite of 87. Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe.
Fazbear Entertainment have some really overachieving animatronic engineers. Okay, so in the 20th century, they made adult-sized restaurant robots only needed to sing presumably pizza-related songs, capable of walking around, spatial awareness, and sight in general, considering no kids were ever stepped on back in the day. Otherwise, that would probably be the big incident of 87 that people talked about. And apparently, their jaws are strong enough to bite someone's face so hard their frontal lobe is removed, either by surgery after the fact or the animatronic just biting their fucking forehead off. If you couldn't tell, these robots' capabilities are really excessive. Phone Guy says,
if I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years.
And the game's paycheck at the end implies that the game takes place in the early 90s. So I guess it'd be the 70s when these things were made as far as Freddy's 1 is concerned. Super advanced walking, seeing, and very strong robots for the 70s isn't as contradictory against its own set of rules as the servos locking up thing seems. The walking is fine. There's a bunch of walking robots in fiction. They have anthropomorphic designs. I'd say walking robots is passable. However, these walking pizza restaurant entertainers all of a sudden having super strength to the point where they could bite a chunk of someone's head off is way harder to justify. Why would you intentionally design a robot with the strength to bite someone so hard that their brain is irreversibly damaged? And if that isn't the case, how do you do that by accident? What I'm saying is basically, you're really pushing it, but it's not a contradiction. It's not impossible. It's just very contrived and unjustified. Contrived is the word of the day, or however long it takes you to finish this video, because I mentioned that a lot. The bite itself doesn't really have much explanation or implication as to why or how it happened, at least in this game, other than it having to do with the animatronic's walking ability.
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day too. But then there was the bite of 87.
Seeing as that ability is taken away after the incident. I wouldn't call a bite happening in the first place completely stupid, aside from the strength required of the robots. These things were obviously near the customers at the time if they were walking around. They're tall, so it's more likely an adult was bitten, or perhaps a parent holding up their child to the robot's face for a hug or a wave or something. I mean, the idea of animatronic robots walking around and interacting with people is a horrible idea for customer safety reasons such as this. I know the incident happened, so so obviously it wasn't a good idea in universe either. But it's honestly such a terrible idea that it's kind of strange how it got past the spitballing ideas phase at all in the boardroom. And I'm talking in universe here. So from what we know, the animatronics walk around, are insanely strong, and are surrounded by people. Thinking about whether this could happen with what's established shows that it's certainly contrived, but not impossible. Next up, we get the reason why animatronics getting quirky is a problem. It surprisingly has nothing to do with the bite we just heard about. It's actually something far more stupid.
Now, concerning your safety, the only real risk to you as a night watchman here, if any,
aside from a criminal wanting to rob the place after hours and carrying a weapon, which is part of the reason a security guard is there to guard the building in the first place, but carry on,
is the fact that these characters, if they happen to see you after hours, probably won't recognize you as a person. They'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton without its costume on. Now, since that's against the rules here at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, they'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit.
What the fuck?
So because robots just walking around aren't inherently dangerous, this is the only direct explanation the game gives as to why they are a threat. And because this is a horror game, it's also the explanation the game gives as to why you should be scared. Unfortunately, this explanation is absolutely insane. Okay, so they see you as a naked endoskeleton and shove you in a suit. This is where the contrived strength actually starts affecting you as the player and having an impact on the game directly, rather than just some backstory. And this is also when the strength of the characters starts snapping my spine and the amount of disbelief I have to suspend. Not only do these things have the strength to bite someone's face really badly, but they can pick you up and stuff you inside an empty animatronic suit. Actually, no, wait, hold on, they're not wearing suits. It's not like Chuck E. Cheese or a Disney World animatronic where what's over top is actually some kind of connecting suit. The animatronics of this game look like this. Wouldn't the separate arm and leg pieces be separate and attachable to the endoskeleton, considering they're separate from each other when attached to the endoskeleton? How are there empty Freddy suits? The animatronics are designed in a way where it's not very believable for an empty suit to be possible. But hold on, I accidentally got away from the fact that these robot entertainers can pick up a person and then shove you inside a suit. What? Are their hands opposable? Do they like grip your head? Or do they pick you up by their arms because they can't grip anything? Also, these things scream at you when they catch you, and then you die. I guess they pick you up and stuff you in the suit after screaming in your face for no reason. Phone guy implies that you die only when you're shoved in the suit.
Stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit. Now, that wouldn't be so bad if the suits themselves weren't filled with cross beams, wired, and animatronic devices, especially around the facial area. So you can imagine how having your head forcefully pressed inside one of those could cause a bit of discomfort and death.
Why do they scream at you? Okay, well, I know the reason from a meta perspective, but what reason do they have to scream at you? To give you a scare in universe? To kill you via heart attack so it's easier for them to take you? And if you're going to tell me maybe they don't pick you up and they stuff you in a suit a different way, then I would like to know what other way in which they somehow shove you inside of a suit that doesn't require an insane amount of dexterity or flexibility for animatronic pizza entertainers to have. These animatronics having the movement capabilities to do anything that involves shoving a human in an animatronic casing seems a bit more insane for pizza restaurant animatronics to have. Far more insane than just having the ability to walk around. But that was just the first of several questions that are now raised. Now, the reason they stuff you in the first place, according to Phone Guy, is because they see you as a naked endoskeleton.
These characters, if they happen to see you after hours, probably won't recognize you as a person. They'll most likely see you as a metal endoskeleton without its costume on.
Okay, so from what he says, they're able to recognize people, but they recognize you as an endoskeleton only because there are no other people around after hours. What? Makes you wonder what this actual naked endoskeleton is to them, if we go by that logic. Also, why don't they recognize me after hours? I mean, you're sitting in a chair with a tablet or something. How does this make them think you're a skeleton? They see people sitting in chairs every day as they eat their food. Well, I'll tell you. They can't recognize you as a human because the game has to happen. That's what we in the biz of criticizing things call contrived bullshit. Recognizing a pattern here? And how come Fazbear's just hasn't reprogrammed them at any point, so even if these things have to walk around at night, they aren't a threat? It seems as though reprogramming isn't out of the question, seeing as these things used to be programmed to walk around during the day, but aren't anymore. Thus, they were reprogrammed at some point. Also, it makes me wonder, why do you need a security guard here if the animatronics are walking around? If any criminal breaks in, those fuckers are gonna eat the criminal. Also, who is the dipshit who programmed a sense of responsibility in these things? Leave that to the employees. Your robot entertainment. Even if it's to protect children from a seeing Mickey without his helmet situation. I doubt the children seeing Freddy shove the metal skeleton back inside an empty body of one of his furry friends or another version of himself will help the situation that much. Yet again, this is fucking stupid. And yet again, it's so stupid that it's making me foreshadow some other conversation that will be happening later in the video about ghosts. Ooh. Okay, so after telling you about the possibility of death, Phone Guy starts wrapping up his message.
I'll chat with you tomorrow. Check those cameras and remember to close the doors only if absolutely necessary. Gotta conserve power.
Okay, so that's what this draining power meter in the corner means. Cool. Though I have another question. Why is this building running off of Duracells? I mean, what else am I supposed to think? The game kind of just brushes past this power mechanic as if it isn't a completely preposterous idea in the slightest. What kind of restaurant has a reserve power system that runs out by having some lights and a monitor on for too long? Especially one where the security guard is supposed to sit there and look at the cameras for 6 hours? Okay, so while playing the game, there is a camera displayed on a rule sheet. Sometimes this rule sheet can turn into a newspaper clipping. Yeah, we'll get to that. Anyway, these newspaper clippings tell us about some secret lore. One of the secret newspaper clippings tells us that Freddy's is closing at the end of the year, as it's gained a horrible reputation and no one wants to buy the company. The check at the end of this game says it's November, so obviously this place is closing down soon. You know, from the perspective of this first game. Now, it's entirely possible that Scott intended the shutting down of the restaurant to be the in-universe reason as to why this place runs off of reserve power. But there seems to be a missing step here for this to be a conclusive this, therefore this kind of relationship. This newspaper has a few paragraphs about how Freddy's is closing. And I mean, yeah, the fact that it's closing is evidence of a lack of money to continue the restaurant. But in what way is the lack of money resulting in there still being power overnight, but to the point where it can run out? Is this place literally being run off a gas generator?
Because, electricity's so expensive, man. So I figured let's get a generator and, run the bar on. Are you kidding me? Gasoline's like 1,000 times more expensive than electricity.
Or did they pay that cheaper power plan that gives the building an iPhone battery? Either way, the game doesn't really care enough to tell us that for some reason, even though it told us a bunch of other stuff in this phone call. I guess the issue here is that it's close, like it's not completely unfounded, but ultimately I think the thread falls a bit too short. We need more of a direct reason as to why this core game mechanic that is very unrealistic and stupid is actually reasonable within this world. Low money as a result of the restaurant shutting down is a good start, but there still needs to be a reason as to why the power can go out and then the next day it's fine. And we need a reason as to why a lack of money means there's a power draining mechanic, considering most of the time power is prepaid or paid afterwards, and it's not usually purchased like gas for your car is, unless the restaurant literally is running off a gas power generator, which we're never told. For a very important game mechanic, it needs a bit more of an unmissable and logical connecting thread as to why it's here.
Perhaps, maybe, and this is just spitballing here, obviously, but what if a guy on a phone who has info from the higher-ups he could give to us gives us a couple hints as to why the building runs off of fucking batteries? It doesn't have to be overly expository, it can just be a single line explaining why this is a thing. So now it's no longer weird, stupid, contrived bullshit that's just there to make the game function properly, because otherwise it wouldn't.
Oh, and don't think I forgot about that whole racket with the doors taking up power to be closed. What's up with that shit? On planet Earth, there's this thing called gravity. Gravity pulls things downwards towards the center of the Earth, whether you like it or not. Now, the doors in Five Nights at Freddy's hang off the ceiling, and when you close the door, they lower. When you open the door, they go up. Obviously, they aren't defying gravity. What's happening here is that there's machinery and energy holding up the door's weight. That's why there's a button to operate these things in the first place. Now, a door falling towards gravity, or at least not being held up anymore, takes little energy and is done entirely by the earth. However, energy isn't being used when they're being held up. It's being used when it's closed. That makes no sense. It should take power to hold up the door. When the power goes out and you just see them go up, it looks so unnatural. A simple fix to this would be to have the doors come up from the ground. So then to have the doors closed, it takes energy because it's holding it up against gravity. But that, of course, is just the easy Scotch tape fix if you still want the contrived mechanic in the first place. It'd still probably make you wonder, why do they need to be powered at all, instead of just having regular doors? Five Nights at Candy's Remastered is a remastered version of Five Nights at Candy's, a 2015 Five Nights at Freddy's fan game created by Emil Macko. Basically, Five Nights at Candy's is a slightly different version of Five Nights at Freddy's with a few different ideas. And Five Nights at Candy's Remastered is pretty much the original Five Nights at Candy's, but done better. Something cool about Five Nights at Candy's Remastered is that it does the fake 3D way better than Five Nights at Freddy's does. But the reason I bring this game up is because there's actually a reason as to why the doors take power in this game. It's done as some kind of security measure.
You need to remember that closing these doors takes power, and the longer they're closed, the more power they drain. Now, I know that sounds kind of backwards, but you have to trust me on that one. I think it's something about the doors having an automatic fail-safe feature in case the power gets cut off, you know, so they open up if there's no more power.
This is also kind of the reasoning in the original Five Nights at Candy's.
I think it was something about some computer somewhere always checking if they're closed or not. Or maybe it was a security feature, you know, in case the place goes dark.
But it's better in the remastered version. And while I'm at it, there's actually an explanation as to why the power can go out too in Candy's.
Now, the reason I keep mentioning the power is because the restaurant uses a backup power generator at night, which only has a certain amount of juice in it. So anything from viewing the cameras to using the security doors takes power.
We have a security feature in the restaurant that limits how much power can be used after hours. This is mainly so that our electricity bill doesn't skyrocket during a night if somebody forgot to turn off something somewhere, you know.
Now, as for the door explanation in Five Nights at Candy's, while I do like the idea of it being a failsafe in case the power runs out, still doesn't really make sense considering they still drop down from the ceiling. But the reason I bring this up in this review of Five Nights at Freddy's is because someone could look at these explanations in Candy's, or come up with explanations similar to those found in Candy's, and easily apply it in their own head to the world of Freddy's, even though there is no explanation as to how any of this stuff works in Freddy's at all. In other words, in me criticizing all of those things, someone could easily say, oh, maybe the reason it's this way in Freddy's is because of this explanation that was in Candy's, or this explanation I made up in my own head. Well, here's the thing, that's all stuff that's not in Freddy's. These things make no sense in the form they are now in the game. Just because there could be a reasonable explanation for something that isn't implied or stated in the game, that isn't an excuse for the game not explaining it when it should. These doors need to be explained as they are blatantly inefficient and make no sense with the info we have as a player, based on what the game tells us, as well as just basic understanding of how planet Earth works. All you can think of to justify this is your own headcanon. Like, for example, if you said that they work the same way as they do in Candy's. And a headcanon is a personal explanation or justification. They aren't explicitly canon, which is why they're headcanons. So at this point, you're essentially writing the story for the storyteller, and I don't consider that good storytelling on the part of the storyteller in this context. Headcanons certainly have their place elsewhere, but mysterious things for fans to discuss or interpret should be left to things that aren't essential to know for the rules, stakes, and the whole media in general to be coherent and make sense. Big ass bomb shelter doors that take power to be closed is just something the game presents us with without expecting us to question it, even though they make no sense. So basically, in conclusion, these doors are big dumb. Anyway, that's it for the night one phone call. It's bad. More specifically, it's poorly written. Everything discussed in the phone call ranges from confusing to contrived to pretty much impossible. Sure, it tells us that the animatronics want to kill you and that you have to manage your power while using the resources necessary to protect yourself, so it at the very least establishes your gameplay motivators, but nothing about the way those things are established makes sense. And if you're watching this video multiple times and have seen the part where I go back to this phone call and talk about the dead kids, you know that isn't super well done either. I mean, unless you disagree with me, but that's illegal, how dare you. I guess to try to be positive, this at least does feel like an actual introductory greeting from a previous employee, and the idea of giving a tutorial and some world exposition from a previous employee who left you some phone messages isn't bad, but unfortunately the not bad idea doesn't overwrite the not bad execution in the form of stinky writing. Actually, thinking about it a little more, I find it funny that for a security job, they don't tell you what to do if you see a person break in and try to steal something. That's honestly something most of these games just forget about or get out of the way as soon as possible. You're supposed to be a security guard in a bunch of these games, but you're so preoccupied with not dying from the shit already inside the restaurant that you never actually have the opportunity to watch for people on the outside getting in. I guess it's a good thing that nobody tries breaking into the building for any reason within the week. It's not like Freddy's is doing you any favors in helping you do your job. There's literally a camera that goes disabled for the whole game, and lots of the visible camera angles in this game would not help you with catching criminals. Like, there's no camera on the register or outside anywhere, but there's 2 cameras in the corner pointing at posters on the wall. You know, just in case a criminal wants to steal a rule sheet rather than anything else. I find it funny how it took until the 3rd game to get a camera view of the exits. By the way, have you ever read this rule sheet before? Don't run. Makes sense. Don't yell. Don't scream. Those are synonyms. Don't poop on floor. Comedy gold. I haven't laughed this hard since the last Netflix comedy cartoon. Stay close to mom. Not your dad though. Fuck that loser. Don't touch Freddy. You can touch Bonnie though. We don't give a shit. Don't hit. Fair enough, I guess. Leave before dark. The night shift in this place is from midnight to 6 a.m., implying that the restaurant doesn't close until well into the night. But even though it's open in the dark hours, leave before it gets dark anyway, cause we said so, bitch. Why is this rule poster at the other end of the hallway away from the customers? This seems like titanically important shit. Anyway, let's finally move on from this phone call, as well as the other shit I talked about that loosely spun off from this phone call, and start talking about the actual game. I mean, it's about time, right? We're over a half hour into this thing. After the phone call, you're on your own. You've already had a chance to take a look around the restaurant with the cameras without anyone coming after you during the phone call. The animatronics literally have no chance of moving until 2 a.m. as their AI is completely disabled, but you wouldn't know that as the player. Regardless, this time without them moving gives the curious players, or players bored by the phone call, a chance to get adjusted with the game's mechanics, getting a sense of the restaurant's layout, a chance to know what it looks like empty, and I'd imagine when absorbing this, many would be wondering what will happen when these animatronics start moving. Also, now that there's no phone call, you can potentially hear the ambient sounds of the games that were drowned out before. I say potentially because the main thing you can hear is the fan, but listening past that, you can hear some ambience, as well as occasional random noises in the distance, like dumbing. Or this random circus music cue. Don't really know where that comes from. Anyway, for the most part, the ambient and atmospheric audio, along with the emptiness, darkness, and general limited visibility of the restaurant, as well as the thought that these animatronics will start moving any minute, and when they do, you have very limited resources to stay safe, is all likely to start building tension in the player. The game is creating a great foreboding environment and encouraging you to wonder what's going to happen and to be scared of what you think might happen. It's honestly really good. Then I started noticing issues. Oh no. Okay, so here's one issue I have with the game. Kinda. I mean, it is and it isn't. You don't have the option to move at all. I know many people appreciate this part of the game and thinks it's an amazing choice, but
I don't really. It is and isn't, because it isn't inherently bad for a video game to just take place in one space and you can't move. Like, your game doesn't immediately not make sense because of that. Job Simulator is great. No, the issue with you not being able to move in Five Nights at Freddy's is just that in the context of the game, it doesn't make sense. I mean, on paper, it does seem to make sense. As the nights go on, the animatronics move more frequently, and thus it'd be more dangerous to try to leave when the building is in a state like this, which makes me wonder, why the hell do you keep coming back? But we'll get to that later. We're still on night 1 with less frequent movement. Just the fact that you don't even have the ability to move and try escaping cheapens the tension of them coming to you. The game is artificially forcing you into this scary, intense situation the game wants you to be in by strapping you in your seat instead of being more organic by creating a scenario where you're unable to physically leave this restaurant for whatever reason, and the office is just the place you'd naturally be drawn to. The game's player character, Mike, seems to literally be incapable of thinking up the idea to move at night, considering the player can never do it. Like, obviously Mike can move in some way, he had to get there somehow, so either he chooses not to, or his legs stop functioning until 6 a.m. Why does Mike have no sense of self-preservation if throughout the whole game you're trying to survive? The lack of movement doesn't make sense, and can seriously break immersion and reduce the fear a player may experience. I imagine that many other people imagined an outcome in their mind where they would leave this dangerous situation if they were able to move, or just straight up wondering why you're just sitting there and letting them come to you. One thing the animatronics can do is disable the door. Who wouldn't immediately in that situation, as a last-ditch effort to stay alive, leave out the other door if it was open? Seems better than waiting until 6 a.m. when the animatronics all of a sudden immediately don't become a threat anymore, even though theoretically they're still exactly where they were a minute before when they were dangerous. The game is no longer succeeding, or maybe never even succeeded, in making you think about a terrifying scenario you'd hate to be put into in real life, which many horror games can use to their advantage to make you scared while playing. Instead, the game is more likely making the player think about how easy it would be to leave the scenario the game is putting you in, making the player less scared as they notice if the game made sense, they could just leave the dangerous situation. That train of thought isn't a guarantee. Some may try to rationalize it with something like, Mike just wants to do his job regardless of the danger. If that's the way you thought about it, then you probably didn't have any issues immersing yourself in the world and becoming afraid. But considering we have no reason given or implied as to why we can't leave, and no reason to even believe that line of reasoning aside from the game not making sense in its current form, like the other headcanon arguments, I'd say it's more likely that the player will be confused about why they can't move, which would result in a huge clash between the player and Mike's wants. So, to summarize, the inability to move cheapens the horror or tension the game is trying to build. It makes no sense and can break immersion. And if you're gonna say the reason you can't move is because the engine the game was built in doesn't allow for 3D movement, yeah, I'll get to the whole Click Team Fusion thing more in a bit, but all I have to say to that now is, yeah, you're right, you can't move because of the engine. That doesn't dismantle any of my points. Moving on to another thing I want to bring up. When I said the game is creating a great foreboding environment, I mean what's shown on the cameras and how it's shown. The lighting, the framing, the emptiness. It's establishing an unsafe atmosphere and is prompting you to worry and fear these animatronics as they start to show up in these dark, empty hallways. The presentation is pretty good. On the other hand, though, the actual building's design is yet again contrived. This is a restaurant where most of the activity happens in the dining room, and there's a few adjacent rooms to it, like the bathrooms, the kitchen, and the parts and service room. But at the same time, there's just these two giant hallways that both lead to this random security room and one broom closet. What's the point of that? Well, it's so the animatronics can slowly walk down them and give you that uh-oh, I'm getting cornered feeling. As for the in-universe reason why there's a security office and one broom closet down two very long and unnecessary hallways, there's no real reason for this. What's stopping them from just making the building square with the security room as just another room like every other room, instead of requiring two hallways? Kids will totally not be like wandering down there or anything.
Who designed this place? Satan?
The only other room down this hall is a supply closet, which also doesn't need its own hallway. This pizza restaurant is designed like a contrived haunted house experience, but instead of you moving through it, the things that are scaring you are moving towards you. and there's no reason for it. And for God's sake, when I say there's no reason for this, I'm not saying that the solution is phone guy saying, oh, the reason why we built 2 useless sets of hallways is because blah, 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 blah. No. What I'm saying is that when you look at these hallways in comparison to the rest of the restaurant, they're stupid. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 also has a big hallway, and while there are issues with the design of that building, a big fat hallway in front of you makes more sense because most of the building is a single turning hallway that leads to 4 separate party rooms, the bathroom, the security room, and the back room. There's more of a reason for it to be a hallway. And Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is literally a haunted house, so that building being a contrived set of creepy hallways gets a pass because haunted houses are a contrived set of creepy hallways. And while we're talking about stupid restaurant design, what's with these big metal doors? And I'm not talking about them taking power, I'm talking about them being metal bomb shelter doors. Why not have just regular doors with a lock? Are these bomb shelter doors meant to stop criminals from trying to kill the security guard? Wouldn't they just break the glass that's right next to them? Unless this pizza place has bulletproof glass, which seems about as stupid as them having big metal doors. Again, these are super inefficient. It's absolutely insane to believe any reality in which this is a thing. What the fuck are these doing at a pizza restaurant? And what's with the windows? Yeah, you can see the animatronics, but for conventional use, you're gonna see a wall, and that's when you can actually see out of them effectively while leaning over this massive desk in the way. These windows would probably make more sense if it was just adjacent to the main room instead of down 2 pointless hallways. Now, these things aren't massive issues. It's just more evidence that this game's world building is incredibly contrived and nonsensical to fit this game's needs rather than both the gameplay and the world working in harmony. It's just another small thing to add to the quickly expanding pile. So to sum up, while I think the sound design and the foreboding environment in terms of looks, along with the fact that you know these monsters are gonna come towards you and you can't do anything about it, are all great ingredients for building fear of death and uncertainty in the player, literally being unable to move and being forced to sit there by the game and experience all of this inside of a building that's nonsensically built at the detriment of the world building really sours those ingredients. Moving on, after a little while you'll soon see that one of the animatronics has left the stage. The animatronics that typically move on night 1 are Bonnie and Chika, not that you'd know their names until the end of the game. Fun fact, a lot of people thought Chika was a duck when the game first came out.
Go away! Go away, you ducky bastard!
Where's the duck, though? Cannot find the duck.
So I'm guessing the bear comes that side and Ducky, as people call him.
I can only assume it's because of her resemblance to the duck from the duck song, or I guess these things. There was lots of debate over that back in the day because people can't look at this poster and discover she's a chicken because ducks have webbed feet. There was also lots of debate over her gender. Actually, there was a lot of debates over the genders of characters in this series. Something I find funny though is that Chika is girl in Spanish. Naming a character who had debates over their gender girl in another language honestly sounds like a joke or like something Scott would do after the fact rather than before, considering how much of a troll he is. Wait, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the animatronics are moving now. Allegedly. Looking at the map in the corner, there are 11 cameras to click through in the restaurant. But because one is audio only, that's 10 cameras you can actually look at. In the disabled kitchen camera, you can hear dishes clanking around when Chika's in there. But you can also hear just in the restaurant without looking at the cameras. Why is she playing with the dishes? What motivation does she have to do that? I don't know. I imagine with the strength these things apparently have, just touching one of these dishes would shatter it instantly. When Freddy's in there, he plays his music box, which you can also hear outside of the camera. I'm also curious as to why Freddy's playing a song in the kitchen and nowhere else. I mean, I get it's for gameplay, but it's just kind of random in-universe. Now, the animatronics moving slowly through the building, making their way towards you camera by camera, is another ingredient to the tension-building mixture that I think isn't bad in concept. Now that they're showing up throughout the restaurant, it makes whatever you think will happen to you seem more like an inevitability. Considering the game told you that you'll get shoved in an empty Freddy suit, it'll probably lead the player to wonder how they'll show that. However, now that they're moving, I think it's worth pointing out how they don't move. I mean, except for Foxy. And because Foxy does move, this implies the animatronics choose to stand in random places around the restaurant throughout the night, as well as the exact same places whenever they're on a certain camera view. So, Why don't they move? Probably because this game is made up of a bunch of still images due to being made in ClickTeam Fusion, the game's engine. And if you're gonna say, the reason you can't move is because the engine the game was built in doesn't allow for 3D movement. Yeah, I'll get to the whole ClickTeam Fusion thing more in a bit. Well, it's been a bit. ClickTeam Fusion is a game engine meant for 2D sprite and image-based games, and is the game engine Scott used for Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, for the uninitiated, you might be a bit confused. This game isn't 2D. It's not a drawing or a side-scroller or a top-down game. Everything is made with CGI. It's 3D. Now, everything in this game is indeed made with CGI. Everything looks 3D, but the game itself is not actually 3D. What's really going on here is that you're being shown a bunch of images made in a 3D modeling software, but exported as flat still images imported into the game. Because the game is a bunch of pre-rendered images, you can't move around the environment. The most 3D depth this game has is this visual effect the game incorporates. When you move back and forth, the image stretches to your side like you're viewing the image in a cone. The regular images aren't made to work with this effect though. They're regular images stretched into a cone shape and not images made from the ground up with a reverse cone look, so that when they're stretched into a cone by the game, it no longer looks as cone-like. But aside from the scrolling, any movement in these games has to be rendered in an image sequence and imported into the game, which means that while there can be movement and animations in the game, it only happens when Scott deems it necessary, which means that there's not many animations. Foxy runs down the hall. There's a total of 5 death animations. Both doors go up and down, the camera screen flips up and down, the fan blows, and they're static. That's it really. The game mainly functions with its stills. I downloaded all this game's textures off the internet, and the file barely has 600 images in it, including content not in the game. Okay, so if there's no animations, then how do the animatronics actually move throughout the restaurant? Do they teleport or something? Well, kind of, but not really. When Bonnie and Chika move specifically, the camera just blacks out for no reason. I guess it's to save on animations. In universe though, it's a pretty big coincidence every time how the cameras just so happen to fuck out when they move. Mike must be extraordinarily unlucky with the camera system during this week because Jesus fuck, that's a lot of coincidences. Something else I feel is worth noting is that the one time we actually see movement on the cameras, it's pretty high frame rate for the average security camera, which we all know are notorious for having PowerPoint level frame rates. Because of that, I kind of see a missed opportunity to have them all move on camera, but at low frame rates. It makes sense in universe because security cameras are like that in real life anyway, and it wouldn't be hard to pull off on ClickTeam because as we've seen, making animations isn't impossible on ClickTeam, it just requires a lot of images to be rendered, and this lower frame rate idea wouldn't require many more images to be rendered, and seeing an animatronic move in the dark at a low frame rate would probably be more effective in the creepiness factor than seeing them standing there not moving at all in the same exact places over and over again every single night. It gets really visually repetitive how Bonnie always shows up here in the supply closet or underneath this light in the hallway, how Chika only has 2 positions in the dining room camera, bathroom camera, or hallway camera. Players are pretty likely to get bored at this repetition, maybe even distracting them, taking them out of the experience again as they realize that they're looking at the same images over and over again throughout the whole game. I also find it strange how the animatronics only stick to their sides of the building. Like Bonnie never shows up on the right and Chika never shows up on the left. Ever. Well, I just think it would be better if you didn't actually know which hallway they'd go down until they went down it. A little variety, you know? However, do you want to know the most annoying thing about the whole still image aspect of the game? Well, there are multiple times where multiple characters can, in terms of the game's code, be in the same spot, but there's no image to show both characters in that spot. Freddy can show up on camera 4B, and Chika can as well. They can be in that space at the same time. However, when Chika is there, she takes priority and her image shows up because there was never a joint image of both Chika and Freddy standing next to each other in the same spot. This whole no image made issue happens in so many other places in the game too. Freddy actually appears in every spot Chika can appear in, but there's no image where they're rendered together. And contrary to what you may think, Bonnie and Chika cannot appear in the dining room at the same time, despite them being able to be there at the same time. Sometimes in the early game, you can notice that Bonnie and Chika are off stage, but you can only find one of the animatronics. That might prompt you to think they're near your door, when in all likelihood, they're both in the dining room and one turned invisible. This is just inexcusable. Not only can this also break immersion, seeing Freddy disappear because Chika goes there, and then reappearing after Chika leaves, all you can really think is how much of an oversight that is, but it's also a pretty big flaw in the gameplay. The point of these cameras is to see where the animatronics are. That is indisputably what these things are for, and this flaw completely goes against that and hinders you. It's very likely to resolve itself after a while when an animatronic moves away from the camera view and the other one becomes visible again, but this shouldn't be an issue in the first place. At all. All that needed to be done here was to create a few more images. Or fuck, even just combine images already used in the game. It is such a massive and blatant oversight. After many in-game hours of them teleporting around the building and mouth breathing, they'll eventually end up at your door and give you some bedroom eyes. When they're at your door and you hit the lights, the game produces a spoop noise. This is the same noise from the trailer, only slowed down. I don't know why it's slowed down. Maybe Scott thought it'd be too cheesy to hear this every time they show up at your door. I definitely prefer it slowed down. It's not immediately obvious that it's a slowed down noise, at least to me, because I was unaware of that fact for years. And I definitely don't find it as laughable as the original sound effect would be if they used that every time. Kind of sounds unnatural, but still works as an encounter or event noise. Kind of reminds me of the sound effect from The Last of Us. Anyway, once they reach your door, that's your cue to shut it in their stupid fucking faces. Now the power meter's existence is starting to make more sense in terms of gameplay, at least on paper. The animatronic's only way to get to you is through the doorway, and to prevent that, you must shut the doors. However, those doors take power, because if it wasn't for the power meter, you could just keep them shut the whole game and the bad bitches wouldn't be a threat. And thus, the power meter makes you want to keep the doors open as much as possible and only close the doors if absolutely necessary, providing more vulnerability with these two open holes in front of you leading to danger. That all indeed does make sense on paper, until you play more of the game or remember something else about how it works. You never, ever see Bonnie or Chika, the two most frequently moving animatronics, walk into your room. They only ever get you after you pull down your camera. Okay, so basically how the game's movement works, at least for our main two at the moment, is like this. Once every few seconds, the animatronics are granted a chance to move to one of the locations in their path. Every few seconds, a random number is pulled out of the game's ass from 1 to 20 and is given to the character and compared to that animatronic's AI difficulty number, a number that they're assigned at the start of each night and goes up as the night and game goes on. If the AI difficulty number is the same or lower than the ass pull number, then the animatronics move a spot. So it's pretty much a reverse D20 roll on whether they can move, because they want the ass pull numbers to be lower numbers instead of higher ones, so it has a better chance of matching their AI difficulty number. You never get to know the AI movement numbers in the game, but it's obvious to any player as they progress through the game that they start moving more frequently. I mean, unless luck and odds really want to fuck with them. By the way, epic shout out to Tech Rules for this very juicy info. As in, I watched his video on how the AI works. He doesn't need my shout out, but still, his info is helpful for this video, so, you know, why not? I'm only discussing the AI when it's relevant to, like, my critiques, so if you want some more details, watch his video after mine, because I spent a lot of time on this, and I really want your watch time, please and thank you. Anyway, the reason I bring up that movement thing here is because when the D20 lands in favor of one of the animatronics, allowing them to move up to your door, there's still one more step until they can kill you. You might think it's flipping the camera, but no, flipping the camera doesn't immediately make them kill you. The final step has to do with the door jamming. No! The reason the jamming happens, and the reason why it's seemingly random, whether flipping the camera while one of them is at your door will result in death, all has to do with another D20. When they're at your door, they have one more successful D20 to land before getting in your office. Or I guess, getting in your office in quotes, because they don't visibly walk into your office. When they get into your office, they make it so you're unable to close the door, meaning you die next time you flip the camera, because now, as far as the game's code is concerned, they're in your office, even when they aren't visibly in your office. Anyway, while I understand from a game development perspective why they freeze the door and light when they successfully achieve their final movement, in universe it just goes unexplained, like a bunch of other stuff in this game. So yet again, in terms of the actual universe of the game, what's going on here exactly? Why are they just able to disable your doors and lights? Do they somehow disable the wiring from the outside, or is their mere presence so terrifying that the buttons are paralyzed out of fear? It's just another thing the game doesn't even try explaining, it's just Yeah, they're gonna kill you now. Suck it, dumbass. Anyway, I was going somewhere completely different with this originally, so let's do a short recap. When they show up at your door, they have one more D20 dice roll to nail before they are allowed to go inside your office. And going inside your office is represented by the door jamming. We don't actually see them walk into your office though, because Scott Cawthon never animated Bonnie or Chika to go inside your room. Now, jamming the door makes it so you can't close the door because they're now in your office as far as the game's code is concerned. Next time you put up and down your monitor, you die because in the time between, they've since literally moved into your office and are now visually showing up and they're yelling at you. This is either to save on animation resources, save on effort, or done for some other reason. This is where we come back to the whole power thing. Earlier I said on paper the reason the power mechanic is here seems to be because these dickheads show up at your door. If you just kept the doors shut all the time, there would be no point in having them open, and thus the game would consist of you staring at all the children's drawings on the wall. Those drawings, by the way, are a nice detail. The reason I said this is why there's a power mechanic on paper is because in practice, this isn't. Because they never actually enter your room, even if they show up at your office. If they show up at your door, they only kill you when you flip up the camera. So why is this power meter here? What's stopping the players from not doing anything if the player doesn't need to shut the doors or even check the cameras to see where they are, because it's pointless if they can't even get in anyway? Well, I will tell you. Tomorrow, as we start night 2, we get another phone call from our favorite phone guy. Anyway, I'll skip ahead in the phone call for now so we can talk about animatronic number 3.
Also, check on the curtain in Pirate Cove from time to time. The character in there seems unique in that he becomes more active if the cameras remain off for long periods of time. I guess he doesn't like being watched. I don't know.
So the guy in Pirate Cove behind the curtain is Foxy, as in that's his name. It's not a compliment. Foxy doesn't really do it for me. At least this version of Foxy. Anyway, as Phone Guy says, if the cameras remain off for long periods of time, he becomes more active. Essentially, what that means for gameplay is if you don't use the cameras frequently enough, he'll progressively leave Pirate Cove a bit more until he's completely gone and running down the hallway. And the difference between him and the other animatronics is that he actually has an animation for coming into your office and killing you without requiring you to flip up your camera feed. Well, I mean, he quickly pokes his head in and yells at you, but you die from that because fuck you. So the reason you can't just sit in your office not worrying about the other 2 animatronics coming in is because sitting there, looking at your rad desk with 50 monitors and a fan you refuse to turn off is making Foxy want to run down the hall and kill the shit out of you. I mean, seriously, it's November. Surely you can spare the breeze in your face and turn it off for like a fraction of the power savings. And you can't just close the door all night to prevent Foxy from doing that because power. And you can't just stay in the cameras and watch him all the time because power. Plus, when in the camera, the other animatronics can enter your room, and if you don't pull down the camera yourself, they'll do it for you. But only after like 30 seconds in your room moaning. So now we can see all the blocks falling into place. As in, we can see all of the shitty contrived fail-safes the game has to make sure you actually play it instead of trying to cheese it due to its rather unconventional programming. Foxy being here makes the power mechanic something to worry about at all. Anyway, now that we've established what Foxy does, I want to quickly talk about some weird things about him. The reason Phone Guy gives for why he becomes more active when the cameras are off is because he doesn't like being watched. But something worth noting is that you don't actually have to look at Foxy to keep him at bay. Okay, basically he rolls his d20 every few seconds, but if he succeeds, he peeks out from behind the curtain more. When the cameras are on, however, he automatically fails every d20. Now notice how every time I've mentioned him and his relationship with the cameras, I've only said if the cameras are on. Contrary to popular belief, at least in 2014, keeping him away has nothing to do with watching him specifically, despite the way the game tutorialized him heavily implying that.
I guess he doesn't like being watched.
What I find funny though is that the misinterpreted way of preventing Foxy makes more sense from an in-universe perspective, because how would he know that the cameras are on in other parts of the building, and why would he give a shit? If he doesn't like being watched, or at least looking at the cameras prevents him from moving, it does make more sense for you to have to watch him rather than just watch any of the cameras. Also, how does Foxy know when the camera's on when he's behind the curtain? Also, why does he care if anyone's looking at him when he's behind the curtain? Foxy is a very forced mechanic. Its only reason to be here is to force you to use the cameras and to make the other characters actually able to kill you. He just seems like hastily applied glue, put there to hold together more glue that's desperately trying to hold together the foundation of the game, because because if he wasn't there would be no reason to look at the cameras. It's a cheap fix to a flawed base, which gets really obvious in 420 mode. Now, there's more to talk about when it comes to Foxy and the gameplay, but I rudely interrupted Phonefella's phone message back there. So let's rewind back to when he congratulated us for surviving a night in a shitty pizza place.
Well, if you're hearing this and you made it to day 2, congrats. I won't talk quite as long this time since
you've pretty much outlived 99% of your usefulness with your first phone call, and these next 3 are pretty much table scraps.
Freddy and his friends tend to become more active as the week progresses.
I like my reason better. I find it funny how they get more active during the week. I guess they just reset their movement frequency every week. Do they know they're in a video game?
It might be a good idea to peek at those cameras while I talk, just to make sure everyone's in their proper place.
Well, if they aren't in their proper place, it's not like I can do anything about it aside from shutting doors, twiddling my fingers, and waiting for them to leave.
Interestingly enough, Freddy himself doesn't come off stage very often.
That should theoretically mean his servos should lock up, right, phone guy?
I've heard he becomes a lot more active in the dark, though.
You've heard? From who? Yourself? Or the underground community of security guards that used to work here but escaped before they could die? Also, for the record, this is the only time in the game where Phone Guy explains how Freddy works at all, which is unfortunate. We'll return to this later though. For now, here's a funny. If you change off to on in that sentence, we get a much different info dump about Freddy.
I also want to emphasize the importance of using your door lights. There are blind spots in your camera views, and those blind spots happen to be right outside your door.
Are you filling up for time or something? If you think this blind spot info is necessary to exposit and people won't notice this on their own, maybe it should have been in the first night phone call.
So if you can't find something or someone on your cameras...
Probably because you forgot to render images with multiple characters on them at the same time. I mean Scott. Because you're not Scott Cawthon, definitely.
You might only have a few seconds to react. Not that you would be in any danger, of course. I'm not implying that.
You already told us that we'll die, though. Why are you pretending like nothing's wrong now?
Also, check on the curtain in Pirate Cove from time to time.
Okay, we've made it back to the place I skipped to. To be positive, Night 2 is a decent place for Foxy to be tutorialized. While it's possible Foxy comes out completely on Night 1, his AI is so low that it's only really possible if you're just never checking the cameras. Or in other words, not playing the game. Or I guess if you have absolutely terrible luck. Okay, that's the Night 2 phone call. That took significantly less time to talk about than the last one. It's also not very good, but that's mainly just because it's padding rather than being full of insanity. Though there are at least some helpful things, like Foxy being tutorialized, albeit a bit misleading, and Freddy being half tutorialized. Okay, now that we're done with that, let's move on to the rest of the second night. Wait, hang on, the rest of the second night? I guess it's time to pull this out of the big ol' save for later pile. Which makes me wonder, why the hell do you keep coming back? Everyone talks about this. It's such a massive gap in logic, and it carries over to like 3 more games in the series or something. We're not talking about those games yet though, so why is it an issue here? Well, it comes back to the issue of your character having a sense of self-preservation, but also not having one at the same time. If you don't want to die from the robots, what reason could you possibly have for coming back to this place and risking that possibility at all? There's no reason for you to come back at all other than because video game and it's terrible.
Why did I come back for another night? It's not like I signed a blood pact to come back here every single night.
And don't give me that, because you pressed continue, Mike makes the decision to move on to Night 2. Shit. It's a meta choice, not a choice from the character in universe, like throwing out the animatronics or keeping them in Pizzeria Simulator. The game would be just as good or bad if you had never played it because it was brought into existence as is, and this choice is just to keep experiencing it. There's also excuses like Mike is so devoted to his job that he wants to do it regardless of the danger, or Mike really needs the money, or Mike is being forced at gunpoint by someone. There isn't really any evidence to any of these other than what you make up about Mike. So again, it's nothing other than a headcanon. So you can believe any of this about Mike if you want, but in the case of the actual game, it didn't put in the effort. So all of this is just fan fiction and has no bearing on the actual game. Also, why would you be devoted to completing a week of a job like this for what they're paying you? If Mike's motivation really was that he just really needs the money, then he's an idiot. I guess someone else could also defend this by saying it's just a game, or to just not think about it, or say that I'm nitpicking, or any number of terrible defenses that don't actually disprove my arguments. If you say that, you get an F- for effort because you didn't even fucking try to explain why I'm wrong. You just told me I shouldn't care because you don't. It's fine not to care or to like the game anyway despite these issues I'm pointing out, but the belief that I shouldn't even discuss this flaw because you don't care is stupid. Anyway, I guess I just think things shouldn't get worse or more nonsensical if you think about them. If the game is taking up a bunch of time in explaining things, there should clearly be a reason for something happening that isn't solely, this needs to happen or the game won't. This game can't pretend to care about rules and pretend not to care about rules at the same time. That's lazy. And I legitimately can't think of any more defenses for the whole coming back every night thing, or at least ones that I can actually see people making. I could say you're infected with a brain parasite that makes you come back, but the person who thinks that is dead. So yeah, coming back every night is stupid dumb pee-pee pants. Oh, look at that. Night 2 ended. How convenient. I just so happened to talk about everything in Night 2 I wanted to talk about. It's a good thing that clip was put there in the editing timeline. Anyway, it's time for Night 3.
Why did I come back for another night?
Oh, cool, another phone call. This one is just padding. Okay, so most of the important info in this game is contained in the first phone call. The fourth night phone call is Phone Guy's death, which reveals a sort of twist that throughout the whole game you were listening to the voice of a dead man, which I think is pretty neat, but I also think it makes the fourth phone call a pretty necessary part of the game. However, you can't not have a phone call on Night 2 or 3 while having one on Night 1 and 4, because that'd be weird. Also, it's 5 nights at Freddy's, so fuck it, throw one on Night 5. It's the final night, there's nothing new to teach, and Freddy really wants to follow up his murder with his political opinions. Anyway, what are you to fill with those 2 phone calls in between? Well, more world building and tutorial seems like a good idea. Much of Night 2's phone call contains more tutorial knowledge, as well as info that you're likely to find out just by playing the game anyway, like Freddy coming to meet you when the power goes out, and the fact that the spots outside your doors have no camera view. But whatever, all that stuff is fine to be here, I guess. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that despite the second phone call seeming a bit padded, it's not super unnecessary. The third night phone call, however, is just a complete waste. Okay, so we start with...
Hey, you're doing great. Most people don't last this long. I mean, you know, they usually move on to other things by now. I'm not implying that they die. That's not what I meant.
If you say so, not like you're the one who told us these guys kill you or anything. Something I'm curious about is if most guards do die, or if they actually do just leave by now. If they leave, I'm confused as to why they even came back for Night 2. That also makes me realize Mike and Phone Guy are the stupidest people to work here for choosing to come back for Night 3. But if most of the employees do die on Night 2, you'd think it would be more known to the public, or at least anyone who wanted to get a job there by now, if most people who work the night shift is the description of the amount of people who died on Night 2. Even if we go with, like, there's a missing person report filed on them, a whole bunch of missing persons reports filed on a bunch of security guards in a row. That's not good press. Anyway, moving on.
I better not take up too much of your time. Things are getting real tonight.
Oh yeah, because things weren't getting real when the machine started moving on day 1. By the way, I do know what he means by that. The game's no longer in the hand-holding phase. It's gonna start throwing all the animatronics at you. It was just a funny meme.
I had an idea. If you happen to get caught and want to avoid getting stuffed into a Freddy suit, try playing dead. You know, go limp. Maybe they'll think that you're an empty costume instead.
Many people interpreted this as a hint.
Don't move, don't move, don't move, don't move, don't move, don't move.
When the power goes out and you have no choice but to just wait to see if you die or win, many seem to stop moving because that's the only way they can play dead in a game like this.
People told me to play dead when this comes up.
In reality, it doesn't do anything. The game's code doesn't care whether you're moving here. And what's funny about this misconception is that Phone Guy immediately tells you to disregard what he says anyway.
Yeah, never mind. Scratch that. That's just not to get caught.
So I don't know why so many people thought it was a hint. Also, they won't see you as a human even though they can recognize them, but they will see you as something else that isn't human if they see you playing dead. Whatever, I'm getting close to the ghost discussion. I should probably stop thinking about this. Anyway, that's the end of the phone call for this night, and it was worthless. What did we get from that? The knowledge that most people either die or leave by this point, which reminds me that we're the stupidest people ever for coming back. And he gives us advice that doesn't do anything, that he immediately tells us to disregard. Do you want to know something this phone call doesn't do though? Tell us anything about Freddy. If this phone call did that, maybe it wouldn't seem like filler that doesn't contribute anything of worth. Freddy is the final character to talk about, with the exception of this weird Easter egg thing we'll get to next century. There are two ways Freddy works. The first way is the power outage, which Phone Guy does warn us about.
I've heard he becomes a lot more active in the dark, though, so hey, I guess that's one more reason not to run out of power, right?
The other way Freddy works, Phone Guy doesn't discuss at all. It's not like there's any good reason. He's already explained the other animatronics, so I think this is an oversight. In the newspaper in Freddy's 3, he gives some trivia about the series. In one of the segments, Scott says he only intended Freddy to move when the power went out, but that was changed before release, which might be why Phone Guy doesn't talk about how he works aside from power outages. That's not an excuse for a lack of explanation, it's more so an explanation for the lack of explanation. Guess what though? I know how Freddy works. Freddy works in a similar way to Foxy. When the camera's on, he won't move, no matter what camera you're looking at. He also won't move if any of the other two animatronics are on stage. And because of this, there's no graphic for Bonnie and Chika being on their own. Don't know why, probably because of the whole changing Freddy's mechanics last minute thing. You'll know when Freddy moves because you'll hear him laugh. He's very discreet on the cameras. You can see him, but mainly from the white shine in his eyes. He starts on stage and goes to the dining room, the women's bathroom, the kitchen, the right hallway, and then the wall area near your door. Like I mentioned earlier, you'll know when he's in the kitchen when his music box is playing. Now, what I think Scott was intending with this character is a sort of red light, green light thing. When you have the camera on, he won't move. Much like the other animatronics, he moves based on a dice roll between 1 and 20 and compares it to whatever his AI level is. Only after he's successful, there's still a countdown of a few seconds until he actually moves. Because he doesn't move when the camera's open, Freddy won't do a camera blackout. I'm not sure why Freddy is paralyzed by any camera view being open. Maybe Scott made it this way for Freddy because you could theoretically be looking at one of the cameras he could show up on, and because he doesn't do the camera blackout, him moving while you're on different camera views is a no-no. Did that make any sense? Anyway, when he moves, he doesn't go back, he only moves forward. When he eventually gets to the final camera, this is the only situation in the game where the camera you're on actually does matter. If you look at another camera, he has a chance to get inside your office because you aren't looking at him on the camera or looking at the door he comes through. He is quite sneaky for a huge-ass robot, and obviously he can't get in if you have the door closed. I'm sure you can see the red light, green light comparison. I mean, it's not exact, but essentially when you're looking at him or where he could end up, he's on red light. And when you're not in the cameras and can't see him, it's green light. It's been a while since I've been 5, so I'm not sure if people turn around or cover their eyes when calling green light, but whatever. Anyway, something worth noting is that he doesn't immediately kill you when he gets in. Every second he has a 1 in 4 chance of attacking you, and he won't immediately attack you after 30 seconds while you're in your camera like Bonnie and Chika will eventually do. So that could result in both you not realizing he's in your room and him killing you when the doors are down, which means the doors can just disappear when he spooks you. It seems to me like very few people really figured out that this is how Freddy works. When the game came out, there were people who believed Freddy was a learning AI that adapted to how you played. In other words, they believed every copy of Freddy Fazbear was personalized. Now, this video was a critique, so I should discuss how all of this pertains to the game's quality. Well, he only moves when you aren't looking at him and he doesn't do the blackout. This means that him moving without an animation isn't as distracting because the whole point of him is that he moves when you don't look. It's a bit more harmonious with the game's limitations. With Bonnie and Chika, they just move all over the place but also stay stationary at the same time, which makes the fact that they're just still images throughout the whole game a bit more distracting and stupid. It's still disappointing that there's only one image per location, so he still does go to literally the exact same places every time, and I do wish the game had the capabilities of allowing him to move in real time and freeze whenever you looked at the cameras, like a weeping angel sort of, but at least I gave the game one compliment. Anyway, back to the shit. Remember how I said that Phone Guy explains absolutely none of what I just did? Again, Night 3's phone call doesn't tell you anything relevant to the game. It just exists because there needs to be phone calls until the end of the game. So it's a total waste. Maybe the playing dead idea was supposed to affect gameplay, but
it doesn't. So it would have been a better use of the Night 3 phone call if Phone Guy told you anything about Freddy. And no, I'm not asking for Phone Guy to say all of the technical stuff I said when explaining Freddy. I'm just asking for a few hints as to how Freddy works. Just saying, keep an eye on Freddy or he'll keep coming closer, or tell us that he doesn't show up in front of the doors like Bonnie or Chika do. Again, the first 2 phone calls give us hints on how the other animatronics work, so I don't know why this one couldn't, because I don't know how anyone could figure any of this stuff out by playing the game normally, at least without many misconceptions. The way Markiplier played 420 mode is hilariously inefficient if you actually understand how the game works. I figured this all out because of the tech rules video, but also doing a bunch of testing and using this radar feature in the console version. The console version is coded the same way, so it still applies to the PC version, which I'm reviewing in this video. And don't tell me they didn't explain it to be scarier. That's a horrible way of making your game scarier. Making your game more unfair because you have no other ideas of scaring the player is dog shit. Anyway, to conclude, Night 3's phone call is bad. It's wasted space that could have been filled. If you actually figure out how Freddy works, it's a small example of the game's mechanics actually working harmoniously with its limits. He doesn't move when you're looking at him, and he does when you aren't. Despite being hard to see on the cameras, it's made obvious when he moves by his laugh. So it's a nice balance of knowing that he's moving, but maybe it takes a little bit to figure out where he actually moved to. It's kind of weird how he freezes when any cameras are on. Maybe Phone Guy would have contextualized that, but it's even more confusing when he does only freeze on one camera, 4B, when he gets there. But his implementation isn't as forced as Foxy. There seems to be an actual idea behind Freddy that isn't just look at the cameras every few seconds so the game functions properly. There's actual good to be found in this character and how it works throughout this game. Such a shame it's almost completely fucked over by the game not tutorializing him. Oh well. Anyway, now that we've finished the phone call and gone over how Freddy works when the power's on, let's talk about the other way Freddy works. Of course, this is the same vocal track. Shut up. Remember that stupid power meter bullshit that's stupid? Well, obviously something happens when it runs out, right? Indeed. This happens. Everything before no longer matters. Everything around you stops and goes dark. The only noises that play is the sound of the power going out and what I can only describe as noisy silence. The power is so disabled, in fact, that the buttons used for the doors and lights disappear from existence. Now, this seems like it'd be the prime opportunity for the other animatronics outside your door to kill you, right? Well, that would make sense, so obviously the answer is no. Any of the animatronics' normal functionality is just completely disabled now. Not even Foxy can attack you, even though the cameras are literally powered down. His attack can even be cut off if he attacks you at just the right time for the power to go out, if you have luck 5 billion.
Whoa, that's new! Power cut off Foxy's little entrance there. Wow, suck a donkey dong.
Inhale my dong.
This segment is pretty much a waiting game where you don't know what you're waiting for or how long you'll be waiting. Sometimes what you end up waiting for is 6 a.m. I don't know what's telling you that it's 6 a.m. I guess you have a really loud watch. Kind of makes me wonder how we're supposed to be leaving this place in a state like this. It's not like 6 a.m. disables the robots. They could still get you. If Mike didn't want to leave while the lights were on, why does he want to leave when the lights are off and you can't see anything? Oh, I guess it's because his shift ended. Fucking moron. Anyway, during this waiting game, what you're more likely to see than the 6 a.m. screen is Freddy's face glowing in the dark as a music box plays. This song is a music box version of Les Toreadors from Carmen on the YouTube audio library. There isn't really any reason for this in-game as far as I'm aware. It's just stock music that Scott chose. Could have been any number of songs on the same album. If when the game came out a different song was used, that song would have become iconic because that would have been the song that played for the past 9 years during this segment. I kind of wonder why this album only made a music box version of the second half of this song. Anyway, going back to the game, why is Freddy like this? Why does he sing and glow when there's no power? Or does he just do this to creep you out personally? If this is something he does to like
calm down the kids during a power outage, which is a headcanon that the game gives no evidence towards, but still, I'd argue this would have the opposite effect of calming down children, because the whole point of this being here is to creep the fuck out of the player. Also, he always comes from this side. Even when he's on the other side, he apparently makes his way all the way across the building to intimidate you through the other door, instead of just intimidating you on the side he's already at. Or just walking into the fucking room and killing you. Anyway, like I said, at this point, you're just playing a waiting game to see if he kills you or not. Now, the idea of a killer robot inches away from you, practically teasing you with a flashing face in a music box song that contrasts the sinister feel of the character in front of you, as you're powerless to stop it, is a fantastic idea for creating a creepy situation you wouldn't want to be put into in real life, as well as a way of building tension for the player. So it's rather unfortunate that the execution is bad, because everything that happens to facilitate the situation is nonsensical and contrived. Like the world around you just stopping, your inability to move, the power mechanic being here in the first place, and the fact that Freddy has this feature to begin with for no reason. So the game earns none of this. Though, it's not like this won't work for you if you just don't notice the issues or don't care. Much like most things in this game, I guess. Five Nights at Freddy's. It's a pretty good game if you ignore all the issues that make it a bad one. After an unspecified amount of time that varies each time this happens, he eventually stops the music and the whole place goes even darker, with you only being able to see the reflection on the doorway. Where's the light from that reflection coming from? I don't know. Also, if it's even darker now, what was with the blue light back there? I thought that the power went out and this blue tint was the game representing that the place was now dark, but still having things visible. I guess this was actually some kind of backup light or something that only lasts like 20 seconds. Where is it coming from? Unless there's no reason for this happening and it's just to make things scarier, or to make the jump scare animation easier to create because the background is just black. Oh yeah, once the game goes dark, this usually happens. Yep, a jump scare. I can't believe I've avoided critiquing these so far. Anyway, those are the things Freddy does. I guess the idea of when the power finally goes out, you see your killer build himself up to kill you or something in a cutscene is fine, but I can't help but think about how it would make more sense if any of the other animatronics used this as an opportunity to kill you. Kind of crazy how in the first game you're in a building scrounging for power, and in the latest you're in a huge ass mall where it looks like half the lights are still on overnight. I was gonna say I'm excited to see which game jumps the shark, considering I'm going to review all of them eventually, but this game makes no sense to begin with, so good job. I guess we got there already. Anyway, now that we've established every character individually, we can see how they come together. In the earlier nights, the gameplay is pretty passive, which is to say it's a lot of looking and waiting and not a lot of immediate action. Because the animatronics aren't moving super frequently, night 1 and 2 on a first playthrough for many players will almost entirely consist of you tracking the animatronics' locations in comparison to you. They don't show up at your door super frequently, but when they do, it's not too many times per night. And when they are at your door in the early nights, you don't really need to keep track of too many other animatronics. On night 2, Foxy is a bit more active and his existence is told to you. To many players, this will add what they think is an extra step when really many players were likely using the cameras liberally at this point already. Plus, everyone's still on pretty low AI, so the speed of the game is still not super fast. This slower pace with not much consistent action required from you can help build some tension and help players get used to the game. Though if you've just become completely unimmersed due to noticing all of the problems with the game's world, it can be pretty boring as the game becomes you waiting for something to happen. Also, this slow pace has the side effect of the game having horrible replay value, because every level is almost literally the same thing as the last one, with the only difference being the speed of the enemies. But you also can't just speed through the starting levels to get to the more interesting bits like you can in many games. Many horror games do lose much of their scare factor on multiple playthroughs, but unfortunately this game also loses much of its appeal gameplay-wise on multiple playthroughs as well. Anyway, as the game says, night 3 is when the game gets the ball rolling a bit more. The animatronics start moving more frequently. Bonnie and Chika will likely start appearing at the doorway more, which means keeping track of where they are more. Foxy typically starts getting less lenient, requiring you to check the cameras more, and Freddy can also come out on this night near the latter half. Keeping track of the power is also most likely starting to take up more of the player's brain as it decreases faster every night. You might not notice that fact specifically, but I'd say you're likely to focus on conserving power more as you're likely using cameras more. The game at this point is most likely starting to become more of a juggling act for the player. The gameplay will now more likely consist of you quickly looking through the camera
cameras and trying to get as much info as possible as to the locations of the animatronics in comparison to you, or the animatronic's current state, all while trying not to stay in the cameras for too long to prevent your power from going down too much. And during the time where you aren't in your cameras, you check the doors to see if any of the animatronics are there, and if they are, you have to shut them as fast as possible. Now that the gameplay loop is becoming less passive and is beginning to require constant attention, it's more likely for a player to find the gameplay engaging. However, as the game's difficulty starts to go up, the cracks in the gameplay loop start to show in another way as the game eventually starts to become rigidly formulaic, heavily encouraging you to hyperfixate on playing in a specific routine for success with very little freedom to do anything else. As we move on to the later nights, this is where the simplicity becomes a criticism. You see, the game requires you to go into the cameras, otherwise Foxy and Freddy will come closer and kill you. However, in the earlier nights when the animatronics aren't moving super frequently, it may seem convenient to also use the cameras to track the whereabouts of Bonnie and Chika. However, as the game starts ramping up in difficulty and the animatronics move more frequently, it means that if you want to keep track of Bonnie and Chika on the cameras, on top of satisfying and keeping track of the progress of Foxy and Freddy, it becomes just a bunch of quick jumping around during the short amount of time you know you should be using the cameras for to save power. And this becomes very inefficient in the later nights because tracking Bonnie and Chika doesn't actually stop them from coming toward you at all. All you really need to do to stop Bonnie and Chika is shut the doors at the right time. And so because you aren't meant to stay in the cameras for a long period of time anyway, resulting in lots of time spent in your office checking the doors next to you, many players will realize that technically tracking Bonnie and Chika is totally useless. You just don't need to do it. You can just open the cameras to satisfy Foxy and Freddy and keep your cameras on them to track their progress, and during your time spent in the office to conserve power, you can just check the doors on your left and right to see if Bonnie and Chika are there. I'd say almost every player that gets far enough in the game starts falling into a routine that they may not even notice, and it just becomes a lot more strict as you progress through the final nights. What may start off as a gameplay loop of trying to keep track of your killers eventually turns into a routine you just repeat every night where you check the cameras for the animatronics you need to check and then check the doors. Rinse and repeat, and you do that until you've beaten the game. And the game encourages this because of its increase in difficulty. Because of the power that decreases faster each night and the frequency of which the animatronics move, paired with the fact that when Bonnie and Chika move, their cameras go blank for a while, the game is essentially forcing you to adopt the mindset that tracking the animatronics is a bad idea and to just stick to the essentials to stay alive, practically forcing you to follow a repetitive pattern with no room for creativity. So while the game requires your constant input, it ends up becoming the same constant input throughout the later nights, which can get really tedious for many people, and ironically turn right back to boring because you just have to stick to the routine for the night to succeed. That's certainly not a guarantee. The attempted resource management aspect of the game can be fun for many people, and there is that sweet spot of night 3 where the animatronics don't move quite enough for the cameras not to seem completely useless, but that only works if you don't already know the pattern. It's fairly undeniable that the game inevitably falls into a loop of doing a few things over and over though, and considering the game has no other kind of gameplay to fall back on and no variety in what you do from night to night, repetition is pretty much an inescapable aspect of the gameplay, and it can get really stale for many players. Some may say that this is strategy, but there's a difference between developing your own game strategy from many different possible strategies and having to play by the game strategy that you may or may not think is your own. And when you're trying to be a horror game, repetition and falling into predictable, rigid patterns for a long time to beat it can also really lessen the impact of the game's horror aspects. This game can fall into that I've shown you all I have to offer trap far quicker than other horror games with more variety. It's a blessing that this game is as short as it is because it really milks this gameplay loop for all it can and more. The game is at its best on night 3, but only when you don't notice how pointless the main game mechanic is. And this repetition is so blatantly obvious when you take on the 2020-2020 challenge. Oh yeah, the title is a lie. There's a bonus 6th night after the 5th night, which is a funny meme, I guess. And then there's a customizable night, which shows up as night 7 in-game. After night 5, you get your very high paycheck of $120. Okay, doing the math, that's $4 an hour, which is below minimum wage for every year in the 90s except for 1990. I calculated this earlier, but So either this game takes place in 1990 or it takes place in some other year and this is after taxes and Scott gave up on taxes in Five Nights 2 because this is the minimum wage in 1987. Also, you can see the weird hand error thing I mentioned earlier. See you next week. Yeah, does that mean that the animatronics will reset in difficulty or just keep getting harder? Well, Night 6 tells us it's probably the latter, which means you have less room to mess up doing the same thing over and over. There's no phone call at all on this night, not even from Freddy, and what you get for beating the night is another paycheck. Apparently for overtime you get another $120 with an additional 50 cents. I mean, that's how I interpret it at least. You already got the paycheck from the last night. Anyway, custom night, the 7th night, is exactly what you think it is. A night where you get to customize the AI numbers the game has secretly been using this whole time. That's what I use to test the AI and understand it better. Obviously there's an option to put the AI onto the hardest difficulty, which resulted in a challenge that was nearly impossible to beat in 2014 because the strategy was based off of a misinterpretation of how Foxy works.
Somebody by the name of Big Bug decided to do the impossible and beat 2020 mode. Congratulations to him for getting it first time using his strategy. And basically what you need to do is you need to put the right door down every single time you put the camera up and watch Foxy very closely.
This was back when people thought you had to specifically watch Foxy, but now that people have sucked this game dry and figured out how everything works, it's a lot easier. The strategy, at least I use, now consists of checking the doors and checking Freddy frequently, satisfying Foxy's need to have a camera on in the building, and Freddy's need to be looked at when specifically on this camera. This super hard mode, commonly known as 420 mode, is pretty much playing the game by doing nothing but satisfying the fail-safes the game has in place for you to actually play it, over and over and over again for 10 minutes. This mode is very repetitive to its core, and to me, insanely tedious. And the only real difference between this and the main game is how strict the game is when it comes to making you do the same thing over and over again. And the horror. Yeah, okay. If the main game didn't desensitize you to jump scares, practicing this mode over and over again and dying a bunch certainly will. Even Markiplier, the guy who threw his hands in his face every time something burped in his direction, got tired of the jump scares.
It's entirely luck if you can do it in, because it's up to Freddy doing his long thing.
Scott Cawthon thought this mode was literally impossible. Also, because of the belief that it was impossible, the 2 stars you get for beating Night 5 and 6 originally stayed as 2 stars. It's almost like he originally put in a 3rd star for beating it, but changed his mind during development because the 2 stars look really unnatural, only for him to change his mind again when he saw someone actually beat it. Yes, the original 2 stars did just look like this. Also, when you beat Night 7 at any difficulty, you're told to fuck off for tampering with the animatronics and smelling like shit, presumably for tampering with the animatronics that canonically smell like shit. I find that kind of funny, especially considering most will probably see this pink slip after beating the super hard mode, or you know, not even notice because they're busy yelling. Anyway, like I said, this mode shows off how simple and restrictive the game is at its core. The game teeters on 2 extremes of almost nothing happening and you just sit there, or there being no room for creativity or anything other than a rigid 5-second routine over and over for 10 minutes. It's not a strategy you can develop, it's a strategy required of you. Combined with how contrived and just completely nonsensical the gameplay aspects are to the world building and rules of the game, as well as all the other criticisms I had about how the characters work on their individual levels, that all leads to my conclusion that the craft of Five Nights at Freddy's gameplay just isn't very good. Mediocre seems pretty high to me, so I'll just settle on bad. I mean, it technically functions, but that's like complimenting someone for blinking and breathing. If you want to play something for gameplay, maybe try one of the future games or fan games. They'll probably have a bit more to chew on. Or, you know, play something that has nothing to do with this bear. There's a lot of those. So, in conclusion, the gameplay sucks. Neato. We aren't done yet, though, because there's still more to talk about. First, let's wrap up the phone calls. The next phone guy called to go over is Night 4. He sounds noticeably different in this one.
Hey, wow, day 4. I think you can do it. Hey, listen, I may not be around to send you a message tomorrow. It's been a bad night here for me.
Throughout the phone call, we can hear the animatronics banging on the door, which is something that only happens to us when Foxy reaches our closed door. Also, what's cool about that is that as soon as you start hearing them, you can open the door because
Foxy isn't actually there. He can be knocking on the door if someone is in front of it. Anyway, I know the reason there's knocking on the door in the phone call is so you're able to tell that phone guy is in trouble, but that just makes me wish that the rest of them banged on the door more in-game. That'd be kind of intimidating. Anyway, this message is essentially phone guy giving his last words as he realizes that he's going to die soon. Telling you he won't be around to send a message tomorrow and hoping that you check the suits in the back room for him.
Hey, do me a favor. Maybe sometime you can check inside those suits in the back room. I'm gonna try to hold out until someone checks. Maybe it won't be so bad.
We don't. Anyway, we then hear Freddy's music and then...
Oh
no. A scream you've likely not heard thus far in the game. The typical scream sounds like this. So we'll talk about this later, believe me. Like I said earlier, something neat about this phone call is that you realize soon after he dies that you were listening to a voice of a dead man throughout the whole game, and he was killed by the very things that are trying to kill you. I think it's a neat reveal because it recontextualizes and changes how you listen to the first few messages of the game. Something else worth noting is that phone guy said that this was his last week on the job.
I'm finishing up my last week now, as a matter of fact.
So phone guy was indeed just a few days away from retirement before he died. Truly tragic. Don't really know why Freddy was playing his song in the phone call. If the power was down, then why are the doors shut and how is the phone still working? If not that, how can this crappy phone pick up audio from across the building in the kitchen? If not that, why is Freddy acting different with phone guy? What is he, a learning AI that adapts to the people he's going after? Also, after the scream, you can hear static before the phone hangs up. When you die, you also see static. So that could lead you to believe that we're hearing phone guy's static screen, which is insanely stupid. So for the sake of this game, I'm gonna have to assume that's the phone playing static. You know, rather than any number of phone error noises that would have made more sense. The final phone call in Night 5 isn't from phone guy at all, but rather a spooky voice. Perhaps it's Freddy, who also is sending a message a week into the future for you, which is funny to think about, him holding the phone or otherwise just actively speaking into it. I guess this night on the job had no security guard at all, and nobody who would have been there when the security guard arrived gave a shit. I mean, unless no employees are there when the guard arrives, or is supposed to leave at 6 a.m. Anyway, if you're still immersed and scared at the game at this point, you might find this weird voice thing unsettling because of how weird and unnatural it is. It's not a bad phone call necessarily. At this time, the game is past the point where it'd be reasonable for it to still be teaching you stuff, so it's fine that the phone call is used like this. I guess it just kind of depends on your mood at this point, whether it works for you personally. And those are the phone calls in Five Nights at Freddy's. There aren't any other phone calls in Night 6 or 7, or on Nights 1 through 5 if you're deaf. The phone calls are a pretty great idea. Not only do phone calls communicate information in a way that doesn't require anything other than a microphone in terms of development, which is great for a game as simple as this, but the idea is also decent as a way of tutorializing things in this game to the player in a way that also builds the world by communicating directly to the player, but not necessarily breaking the fourth wall at the same time. However, much like many great ideas and even just decent ideas in this game, the execution is shit. The issue is the writing of the phone calls. Now, I wouldn't call the phone calls an example of exposition, or at least exposition in the negative sense, where it's just stuff being explained for you that wouldn't make sense to be explained for you in this way for the sake of the audience. The phone calls do seem like they discuss what you would actually discuss if you worked here in real life. A company introduction, the disclosure that they move and why they want to kill you, briefly mentioning other things like doors and the power. If it was exposition done badly, he would probably not leave any kind of lingering questions in places where leaving lingering questions would be fine. He'd probably mention the bite of 87 and go on in detail about how it happened for minutes and discuss it in a way nobody talks in real life. This isn't to say there weren't more new things he could have said, or things he could have said in a different way to make the world building actually make a bit of sense, or to tutorialize things better, but I've already gone over all of that. The point is, I wouldn't call exposition the main issues with the phone calls writing. The main issues with the phone calls writing are more so how the game cannot be a good tutorial sometimes, and the most glaring of all, the world building and rules described in the phone calls not making any sense at all. Stuff like the animatronics being as strong as they are for being simple
simple pizza restaurant entertainers, the complete glossing over of how the building runs off reserve power, and that the doors use up said power, etc. So yeah, the phone calls could have been better. What I'm looking for is a middle ground. A sweet spot between the two extremes where things are clarified or reworded to not be as constantly contradicting as it is now, while not being over expository or explanatory. However, there is another thing I have to discuss. Now, if you remember way back when I was talking about how the world building doesn't make any sense, I mentioned how the reasons Phone Guy gives as to why anything is happening makes so little sense even within what the game establishes. It may get you thinking if it's stupid on purpose to make you wonder about another explanation, because otherwise, everything Phone Guy says are actually issues with the game. Well, that other hypothetical explanation as to why everything is happening has to do with ghosts. And since we're wrapping up these phone calls, let's rewind a bit and talk about that whole ghost thing. Remember how this poster can turn into one of 4 newspaper clippings? Remember how I said that one of them tells us about how this place is closing down soon? Yeah, well, all 4 of these newspapers tells you some backstory about this place. With those newspaper clippings, you're able to piece together a story that 5 children were lured into a back room of Freddy's by Murder Man McGee, also known as William Afton, but shut up, we aren't there yet. He's not even purple at this point, so he goes by Murder Man McGee for now. The newspaper says that he lured them there with the help of an animal mascot suit. This ingenious concept of a fursuited murderer would come back in future games. The bodies were never found, but you know, they obviously died. The murderer was caught and charged according to these newspapers, so luckily we won't have to deal with him ever again. Over time, Freddy starts struggling to remain in business. The animatronics start smelling like shit and bleeding. The health department is not pleased, and neither are customers. And because of the awful reputation, Freddy's is expected to close by year's end, with nobody wanting to buy this company because they don't want to be associated with any of this shit. And the CEO, whoever that is, says that these characters will live on in the hearts of children forever.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load.
And that's the spooky backstory of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the story within the story of your dumbass working at this craptastic pizza place. It's highly likely that by this point, all of this death was envisioned to have happened in this particular restaurant only, and not one of the thousands of other ones that spawned into the story later. Something else worth noting is that this text relies heavily on implication. It isn't explicitly stated in this first game that the kids were shoved into the suits, or even that they died necessarily. However, that's obviously what happened. The game just doesn't outright say it. They just tell you these specific beats of the story out of the possible dozens of different story beats that could be told of that story to show that they're all related to each other. The kids going missing is related to the bleeding animatronics. The game wouldn't tell you these two things if they actually didn't die and were just hiding in a secret trapdoor off screen the whole time. In other words, if you believe that these unknown kids died and their corpses were somehow shoved in the suits, the game is obviously providing a link through its storytelling, telling us something here without outright stating it, which means it's more than just a headcanon spawned out of nowhere, which is pretty neato. Though, if the children's corpses were shoved in the animatronics, you think that'd result in more than just bleeding eyes and mouths. I don't think animatronic skeletons would be able to work properly if chunks of children were lodged in them, even if they were ground to a paste somehow, unless Fazbear Entertainment found the bodies and disposed of them, and simultaneously didn't clean them well enough at all because they still ended up leaking blood anyway. Also, only being threatened with shutdown by the health department for bleeding animatronics, that's the most lenient health department I've ever heard of. Anyway, other than those things, the backstory itself of kids being killed here acting as the downfall of a pizza place is actually pretty decent. A perversion of the intended innocence of a family pizza restaurant, which is the whole idea the game as a whole is kind of going for. I just also wish that it was delivered to us in a better way that doesn't involve hallucinating newspapers, but we'll get to that later. Now that we know that the kids are dead and shoved in the suits, it's time to discuss the implications that these dead kids started haunting the animatronics, and that being the reason as to why things get a bit quirky at night. It's not as heavily implied, but let's look at the evidence. Exhibit A, there are childlike moans when the animatronics enter your room and your camera is up, as well as during the night for a phone call. I don't really see a reason for these noises to be coming out of them if they weren't a result of children haunting them, so I consider that evidence at least. Exhibit B, the scream. When they kill you, they scream in your face and it sounds like a child. It
isn't a child. It's some girl from some alien movie. But it sounds close enough to a child. Exhibit C. They told us this backstory of kids going missing and heavily implying their bodies were stuck inside the suits for a reason, I assume. And Exhibit D. Scott said so. Probably. Okay, so are you familiar with the YouTuber Matthew Patrick 13? He made a video about Five Nights at Freddy's when it came out. This would prove successful for him as he proceeded to keep doing that until the end of time. Scratch that, I guess it wasn't until the end of time. Hey, you know what happens when you spend like a year sitting on and revising a script, and then you spend 4 months editing a video, which is 3 months longer than you wanted to? Jokes go out of date as you're editing it. If I released this video when I intended to, I would have at least had a few months, but now I don't anymore. God damn it! I never want to spend this long on a video ever again! And let's be honest, it'll probably happen again. Fuck me, right? Anyway, what was I talking about? In this first game theory video on Five Nights at Freddy's, a comment left by Scott Cawthon shows up that Matt the writer and or Ronnie the editor found somewhere, I think. The comment says, there is an explanation as for why the characters are haunted, but it's hidden and would take a careful observer to figure out. Okay, so I know this isn't explicitly stated in the game, and I guess you gotta take the game theorist's word on this, that this comment is real. However, there are also those few other points I mentioned before. So I have reason to believe that the haunting of the animatronics could have been the intention from the start. Also, the future games certainly run with the ghost idea more, so if you want to call that Exhibit E, then go ahead, I guess. Basically, what I'm saying is I feel justified in talking about this ghost thing at length. So to quickly recap, nothing about why the animatronics as described by Phone Guy makes sense, and it establishes a contradictory, contrived, and stupid world for this game to take place in for it to work. The reason for moving is because servos will lock up if they're turned off for too long, which is dumb. The reason for wanting to kill you is because they see you as a naked endoskeleton, which is dumb. Also, they're strong enough to kill you by shoving you in an empty suit casing, which is dumb. These don't make sense with Phone Guy's reasoning, so let's talk about the more secret and implied explanation of why the animatronics do what they do, which is they're haunted. If this alternate explanation does make sense, it won't really save the game's world, as there are so many other things in this game's world that seem to bend over backwards to make the game possible, and it doesn't even repair the other stupid parts of the phone call, but I'm just trying to be fair here. Okay, so they're haunted is all the explanation someone could really gather from the game and Scott's comment. What makes discussing ghosts in media hard is that ghosts are inconsistent across media. They don't follow the same rules, because they aren't real. Whatever powers they have is subject to change throughout incarnations. Sometimes they're visible to people, and sometimes it's just specific people. Sometimes they can fly, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're white, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're other colors. You never really know what you're gonna get when a ghost is introduced in a story, which is both a wonderful thing and an awful thing. A wonderful thing because you can take a ghost and make them your own. You can really mold it to your media. But it's also awful because if there's no set rules to ghosts that aren't the ones you apply yourself to, then it's very easy for them to become inconsistent in your own universe, or to go overboard and make them super overpowered. Last Jedi. So if you're never gonna explicitly state what the rules of the ghosts are, make sure you have the rules in your own head at least so they remain consistent, because letting any random thing happen and then using the excuse of ghostly influence can make your ghost seem very inconsistent or just way too confusing. Or people could end up assuming anything that doesn't make sense in your story is explained away by the presence of ghosts because of the lack of established rules your ghosts have, even though really thinking about it, there's little evidence for ghosts impacting everything, and they only thought of that because the story doesn't make sense in the first place, which is just laziness on the part of the media you're talking about. So with all that being said, let's talk about the ghosts or spirits or whatever in Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, I'm using ghost and spirit interchangeably. If there actually is a differing definition, I'm using them interchangeably regardless. These kids are experiencing an afterlife in this pizza place, and I'm talking about it using these words. First, let's talk about what ghosts mean for them
them moving. Looking at the evidence from the game, we can see that the animatronics when they aren't moving look like this. Perhaps the dumb servos locking up thing is a lie and Fazbear Entertainment has no idea why they're moving and just lies to their employees. I mean, if they were turned on or at least set to a free roam mode, they would probably not look like this, as the free roam mode was used for entertainment throughout the day when it was used. And if we assume the animatronics are actually off at night and Fazbear Entertainment was lying about keeping them on at night, that would mean that the ghosts are possessing the animatronics and moving them like a new body, even if it's more common to possess living things rather than objects. So there we go. That's the best possible assumption as to how haunted animatronics translates to how we see them moving in-game. And looking at the two potential explanations the game could be going with here, we either got an explanation by Phone Guy that's very stupid and makes no sense and damages the world building due to that, and another one that's fine, it's better because it's not as contradictory and nonsensical, but it relies heavily on assumption. Like, yeah, if a ghost is possessing a thing that's movable, i.e. an animatronic that used to move around, I guess it makes sense that the ghost would be able to move it if it's possessing it. But I was really kind of just like theorizing and speculating with that whole, oh, maybe Freddy's is actually lying to you thing. Here's the thing. The game doesn't necessarily make it obvious that you're supposed to disregard what the Phone Guy is saying. Like, you know how in a story, whenever someone's lying, they talk in a certain way to make it obvious to the audience that they're lying? Here, it almost seems like the explanation Phone Guy gives is what the explanation was intended to be, but as the game was going along in development, Scott Cawthon thought, oh wait, maybe I could do this other thing where the ghosts are haunting the animatronics and that's why they move and kill you and all that. If the ghosts haunting the animatronics is the whole reason as to why they do any of the shit in the game, we have to disregard what the phone call says. They contradict each other. The reasoning for them moving can't both be, oh, their servos will lock up if they don't move, but also the animatronics are haunted and the ghosts are moving them. But the phone call is not really written or delivered in a way that makes it obvious to a player that they're lying to you and you're supposed to find a different explanation or take a different explanation into consideration. How I would have done the phone calls is I would have made it more obvious that Phone Guy is just reading off notes Fazbear Entertainment gave him. Make it so that all of the info he knows about the animatronics is obviously just shit given to him by the higher-ups. Something like, oh, the staff told me on my first day the reason that they move around is because their servos will lock up. I don't actually know how true that is, that's just what they told me. It's a very small change, I know, but with that change, it makes the whole ghosts haunting the animatronics thing more well-weaved into this game with this phone call also being here. Because with that change to the phone call, it goes from just a contradictory set of information to the ghost haunting thing, to almost foreshadowing to the ghost haunting thing. Because the way it is in the game now is just dumb. You just have two explanations as to why the main antagonists, Pizzeria animatronics, are walking around and killing you, which are two things real-life restaurant animatronics don't fucking do. And I haven't even talked about all the other annoyances I have with this whole haunting line of reasoning. God damn it! If there are kids possessing these robots, why did they just stand in the same places over and over again? They obviously don't have to act like that, cause Foxy runs. Also, how did the ghosts know when the cameras are on elsewhere in the building? Remember, that's how Foxy and Freddy's AI works. If the ghosts can tell when the cameras are on and off, that means they can just know things. Or at least know things involving the camera. And if they know when the camera is off, then why do they waste so much time they could use coming toward you when you have the camera off and you aren't looking at them? Oh wait, hang on, we haven't talked about the reasoning for wanting to kill you. If you remember, Phone Guy says they see you as an endoskeleton and that's why they shove you in a suit. It doesn't really make sense that they don't recognize you as a human. It doesn't really make sense that they're so strong. We've been over this. So again, for it to make sense, we have to assume that Phone Guy is lying, and some of that happens because of the haunting. Okay, so why would the ghosts of the children want to kill you? And why would they do that by shoving you in a suit? Okay, well, the children who were murdered were shoved in the suits and are possessing these animatronics because of that. There's a bit of a parallel there, which makes more sense than they see you as an endoskeleton and shove you in a suit because it's their duty. What are the ghosts' motivations for killing the security guards, though? We didn't kill them, we're not their unfinished business. Even if we are the killer, as 2014 MatPat theorized, they also killed Phone Guy, so I guess they're just angry, or maybe they're killing random guards because they have a grudge because the kids were never found because the security guards never found them, or because security guards didn't do a good job protecting them. I don't know, these might be the reasons why the animatronics act the way they do, but they might not be, so I don't know. Why are they killing us? Also, what's with the screaming? Why do they scream in your face? Is that just so there could be a jump scare? If so, that's pretty funny, but like in a stupid way. But the biggest issue here, they shove you in a suit. How do they do that? Are the robots still picking you up? Do they kill you and then drag you to an empty suit or something? Again, these animatronics still seem quite strong for what they are, regardless of if ghosts are possessing them or not. Unless the ghosts are giving them extra strength. These ghosts of dead kids. Fuck it, they're ghosts, they can do anything. Oh no, wait, that's laziness. Again. And by the way, the shoving you in a suit thing is what happens, evident by the game over screen. If you think something else happens when you die and this image is a red herring, there isn't any evidence for that in this game other than the idea that the animatronics shoving you in a suit is stupid and it must be something else. So basically, this explanation doesn't really explain away why they kill you, when certainly not the super strength, or at least in a way that's like, oh yeah, duh, that's why they have it. It's more so like, okay, I guess these children's ghosts give cheap pizzeria robots the strength to pick up a person. The fuck? So yeah, that's pretty shit. Anyway, I really like that whole being shoved in a suit because they were shoved in a suit thing a lot better than because it's against the rules to be a skeleton at Freddy's. And it makes their lack of care about this endoskeleton in the back room make sense. But this ghostly explanation of why they kill you is still really, really flawed. So yeah, the animatronics being haunted, that's a cool idea. I like that idea, but it still doesn't resolve the issues this game has with the reason as to why anything is fucking happening. It doesn't make sense. Sorry. God. Fucking damn it. So yeah, looking at this game from afar, I don't really think this game makes sense. I don't think it's coherent at all. It kind of just does whatever the fuck it wants, but it's pretending as though it is grounding itself in rules. It's just that, those rules are nonsense. And then on top of that, there's just shit in this game that doesn't make sense that doesn't even have an explanation. Like the building running off of fucking batteries, or the doors just being so inefficient in general for no fucking reason. And also, if ghosts are really haunting these animatronics, why the fuck don't they just stand around your door all night? I'm not saying the game would be made better if it was just impossible. I'm just saying that it would make sense if they did do that, but they don't. Because the game doesn't do a good job contextualizing any of its mechanics. The end result is that these random game-like aspects of the world don't make sense. And when this stuff is almost all of what your world consists of, on top of a shit ton of other gaping issues and little nitpicks in this game that would be hard to counterbalance with strengths even in a bigger game, it all ends up being a broken, dysfunctional, bleeding world made up almost entirely of issues. And to be honest, I don't think it's necessarily of quality to have some game mechanics or parts of this world be explained under rules, but ignore it other times for the sake of the gameplay part if you've also established you want rules for those other things and you want players to be invested in your horror atmosphere. So yeah, that was a lot. I wish Five Nights at Freddy's had lore that was way quicker to talk about. This isn't gonna get any simpler when I move on to the future games, is it? Fuck. Anyway, since we're wrapping up the loose ends of the world building, story, lore, and all that shit, there's one more topic I want to talk about. Hallucinations? That's hallucinations with a question mark because it's really confusing. So remember the 5 dead kids in the newspaper and how they were shoved in suits? If there's 5 of them, shouldn't there be 5 animatronics? There's only 4. Freddy, Chika, Bonnie, and
Foxy the Fox.
Well, there are only 4 at first glance, and even at the millionth glance. But there is a very rare chance that this guy will show up at, like, glance 1,000,001. This is Golden Freddy, and for the sake of this game actually keeping its last modicum of making sense juice, this thing should be considered nothing other than a hallucination, right? Well, it does indeed seem to fit that description.
Now let's forget about Golden Freddy for a bit and talk about hallucinations.
Okay, so potential hallucinations in this game aren't a new thing. Occasionally you'll get these flashes of Bonnie and Freddy in your vision, as well as the text, "It's me." I don't know what that text is referring to, but the point is they're weird vision flashes. Maybe Mike is super scared of this life or death situation. Doesn't make sense that he's back here the next day if he's so scared he's hallucinating, but sure, seeing quick flashes of your monsters when you blink or something seems reasonable enough. Then there's the various secret screens on the cameras that I mentioned earlier, seemingly impossible things such as text on Foxy's sign changing, posters on the wall changing, and of course the rule sheet turning into the newspapers. We're getting a little more hard to buy here. First of all, they don't immediately disappear. They can if you quickly flip up the monitor and flip it back down, and that can work in the sort of, oh, this character is starting to see creepy shit in the corner of his eye thing. But you can also just keep the camera on for a while and the creepy screen just kind of stays that way, implying more so that it really is what's being displayed on the monitor. But no matter what, they disappear when you flip the camera, so it's still reasonable to believe that it's a hallucination. However, if the random rare screens in the camera are hallucinations, consider the following. The story of the dead children in the newspapers is real. Otherwise, the story being shown to you as the player would be completely pointless. So either you're hallucinating info you have no idea about in the form of a newspaper, or you're hallucinating newspapers you've read before in such great detail that you're able to read them again with your hallucination. Dumb fuck. And what's disappointing is that this hallucination thing is the only way you get any of the backstory of Freddy's. I probably would have shown the newspapers or info in the newspapers in a more meta way that makes it obvious that this info is just being shown for the audience. Or at least not being hallucinated by the main character, kind of like the death minigames in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Your character isn't seeing these on any arcade machines in the building or playing them himself. It's something meta for the audience to show aspects of backstory. This is a far better way of telling vague backstory under the limitations of the engine than hallucinating newspapers. If we were to keep the newspapers though, I would have put them between nights. There are 4 newspapers, and at the start and end of the game there's a newspaper advertisement and a paycheck screen. So it all slots in well. Maybe end night 1 on this newspaper of the 2 children disappearing, end night 2 on this one telling us that it actually was 5 children that disappeared, end night 3 with the newspaper implying they were stuffed, which leads into night 4 where we hear Phone Guy's death in a very distinct childlike moan of pain before that. And then end night 4 with the article that the pizzeria is closing, leading to night 5, which would end on your paycheck. Anyway, yeah, these camera hallucinations are a bit more flawed, but at least they can still pass as hallucinations from fear again. And finally, on our hallucinations list, we come back to Golden Freddy, the 5th animatronic question mark. This guy shows up if the rare chance of this poster being turned into Golden Freddy occurs. I wasn't able to get any footage because he's very rare, so it's time to bust out all reliable.
Oh god! What the fuck? What the fuck, okay?
If you flip up the camera, he won't kill you, but staring at him will kill you because Mike sucks that bad at staring contests. He also doesn't care about doors. He'll enter your room regardless if they're closed or not. There's this weird giggle that accompanies him when he shows up that's supposed to be a little child. Golden Freddy is also obviously discolored, which maybe might have been a bit of evidence meant to contribute to this hallucination idea in the first game, similarly to the discoloration of the hallucinated animatronics in the 3rd game. He also appears to be limp, which may lead you to assume he has no endoskeleton, but if we zoom into his sprite here, yes, he does. Or maybe he doesn't, and these things connecting the pieces of his body parts aren't actually an endoskeleton somehow. Maybe this limp animatronic costume idea would make more sense if these costumes were actually fabric suits or something, instead of just pieces. Anyway, this immediately seems like textbook hallucination, right? It teleports, defying the rules by entering your room with the doors closed. None of the other animatronics act like this. The flashing of spooky images of Freddy and Bonnie can show up here. There's a funny laugh. It's discolored. It's still the first game, so let's toss that in. And it disappears when you look away, which the only way to do that is to flip up and down the camera. The hallucination line of reasoning actually seems more than intentional, which is fine. But how does it kill you? Hallucinations aren't real. What do you die from here? There aren't any other kinds of hallucinations in this game to this level. I probably would have just had it blink away. You don't need the jump scare for this to be a scary moment. This appearing out of nowhere in the first place can be the scare in and of itself. Markiplier wasn't killed or jump scared by it, and he was still freaked out. That's not the end though, because despite how heavily implied it is that this is a hallucination, there's also reason to believe he's real. There are 5 victims, and Scott highly implies that they were all shoved in suits. And combining that with the idea that the victims went on to haunt the bots highly implies there was also a kid shoved in a 5th suit. And that a kid's haunting this 5th suit, which implies that this 5th suit, Golden Freddy, is actually real and not a figment of your paranoid and scared imagination. Also, and more importantly, Phone Guy dies from Golden Freddy, and this isn't a hallucination because we hear it. So, what is this implying other than Golden Freddy is real and could just do all this random wacky shit? What the fuck happened here? You could have just left it to a hallucination game, but no. You had to make Phone Guy die from the one animatronic that is highly implied to not be real, and make all the ridiculous, impossible shit it does actually implied to be literal. Now I'm wondering why the fuck it doesn't just kill you whenever it wants. It's also making me think about the insanely overpowered abilities this ghost has. What was the intention of this character? Why is it here in the first place? It's not like Scott planned out any of the shit Golden Freddy became in the future. So like, why is he the way he is here? And why is he yellow and impossible? Hey, let's watch this old Did You Know gaming video and see if there's any facts we're able to dig up on this thing and why it exists.
In an interview with Geeks Under Grace, Scott was asked what the story behind Golden Freddy's creation was. Scott stated, "Sometimes things just happen during the game making process. I can't explain Golden Freddy." That's all for today.
Oh, okay then. Nothing is just here. This is the consequence of not thinking about the small details in a game that's super small where one dumb thing can have big ripples. If the newspaper said 4 kids, if a normal scream killed Phone Guy, and preferably if this random Easter egg was just that and it didn't kill you, 3 very simple changes, this rare Golden Freddy appearance would be completely fine. But the game didn't think through what it was implying, and by mistake has completely ruined the last chance of creating a world that makes any sense or has any consistency.
No, you cannot change rules!
So, yeah, this sucks. And what was the end result of this? A quick scare? Alright, it's the horror game, of course. You gotta try and scare the player. Well then, how about we talk about this game's attempts at horror? Finally, right? Okay, so what does this game do to make the player piss and or shit their pants? Well, at the start, it's building up the fear of what these things could do to you. They're slowly approaching you, and the game's told you that you will die if they catch you. It has described something very specific when they do.
They'll probably try to forcefully stuff you inside a Freddy Fazbear suit.
So it's making you fear them coming towards you and fear death from them. And the ambient noises throughout the game, as well as the dark, purposely foreboding environment, helps to build this tension. If you aren't feeling the fact that these murderers are coming to murder you though, you are either fearing nothing, or you're likely scared of another aspect of the game, the animatronics designs. Or you could also just be scared of this on top of the game making you fear death. If you remember, Scott Cawthon made this game because people were unsettled by his previous game's character's design. And when you turn the environment around them into a dark and empty liminal space with ambient noises all meant to build tension, it can be freaky to see these soulless looking robots that are supposed to look like anthro-animal characters in places you wouldn't normally see them, especially with the knowledge that they're coming to kill you. It's a good formula for scaring people who are scared of animatronics. Also, sometimes they look at you funny. I will say these animatronics are designed well. They don't look like they were designed to be creepy specifically. It's like Scott actually had the intention to design robots that would fit into a pizza restaurant environment. If he specifically designed them to be creepy, it would have made some people wonder why anyone thought this was a good idea to show to children. But these are just pretty standard animal robot designs, which some people find disturbing anyway. But considering real life restaurants inspired this game, then it's totally fine. The only design flaw, not necessarily relating the creep factor, but more so world building that I can think of, is the whole empty suit thing, which I already talked about. But the actual animatronic designs are fine. They're made to be very robotic, to try their hardest to prey on a fear of animatronics some may have while still being believable restaurant entertainment. Other things the game does to try to make them creepy is to make them do things atypical for animatronics to do. Not only to play off the fear some players may already have of uncanny non-living robots, but to also try freaking out the players who aren't scared of animatronics. Like me, putting them in positions or angles that emphasize that these things are not alive, but are going through the building as if they are. But really, most of what the game does to scare people who aren't scared of animatronics design-wise is to have their eyes go black sometimes, and to stare at you in the most unnatural ways possible. You may work it the first few times, but much like most other horror aspects in this game, it wears off once you start seeing it over and over again. Now, most of this game's ways of scaring you aren't necessarily things that are trying to scare you on their own, but are more so build up towards a climax. The game is making you scare yourself pretty much by making you think about what it's eventually going to build up to, which can be scary the first time. However, there's a massive problem here. The payoff sucks. When they eventually kill you, it's a jump scare, and the next time they get you, it's another jump scare. And then another one if you die again. You get jump scared when you die. That's the climax. And by the way, you never see them stuff you in a suit. When you see the aftermath, it's just two eyes popping out of a normal looking suit. The only thing this game builds up to is a jump scare. Here's the part of the Five Nights at Freddy's review video where I say that jump scares are shitty and lazy ways to scare the player because a big loud boo isn't actually true fear, or how they don't require talent, just a loud noise, or how they leave you as soon as they come, or how it's the horror equivalent of tickling someone after an unfunny joke to make them laugh and all that shit. So let's do that. Fuck jump scares. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get a bit more detailed here. The only thing this game is building up to is a jump scare, and nothing else. Everything around it is built up to this climax. The problem isn't that jump scares are lazy, at least on its own. There's also the other issue, which is that it's the only thing the game has up its sleeve. The game isn't trying to scare you in a variety of ways. It only has this one crescendo event with everything else leading up to it instead of those aspects standing on their own or building up to other things. The foreboding environment and ambient noises are helping you get into the mood for your jump scare. The animatronics are coming toward you to kill you via jump scare. The animatronics are hoping that you're creeped out when you look at them, but all they do to you is a jump scare. And this is ignoring all of the flaws of the game that cheapen these horror aspects anyway that I've already discussed. Like being artificially forced to experience this in a way that makes no sense, as well as the absolutely horrid world building and complete lack of justification to many things you're presented with. There are some aspects of the game that do work better in isolation than other things, like the ambient noises in the environment, but those are more so enhancers to get you in the mood. They're still meant for build up, and the only thing it's building up to is a jump scare. You're presented with some spooky backstory, but in this game it's not much more than people died, bleeding animatronics, ooh. The psychological fuckery of, oh, they're gonna get you, is very likely to wear off when you realize the game is just reliant on jump scares. And when you eventually figure out that the whole game is just reliant on jump scares, it not only makes the game feel lazy and cheap because jump scares are lazy and cheap, but you also figure out that there's nothing else to be scared of, resulting in you likely realizing there's nothing to be scared of. If I die from Foxy or Chika, what would make me fear dying from anyone else if I know that's just going to be another jump scare? Plus, how often are the jump scares going to legitimately get you after they get you more than like twice? I will say that the first jump scare in this game, much like any unexpected jump scare, will most likely make you jump and put you on edge. But like, after that, it's just diminishing returns. At best, I flinch a little, and there really aren't any other tricks the game has up its sleeve other than variations of got ya moments.
And something else I feel like pointing out is that a lot of the jump scares have like wind-ups, you know, like a thing that happens before that make it obvious that a jump scare is about to happen. Like when Freddy does his power outage shit, like what else is gonna happen here other than a jump scare? There might as well be text on the screen saying, scary part incoming, please shit pants. Also, when Bonnie and Chika get in your office, the lights are disabled, so what else is gonna happen when you flip up the camera other than scary thing? And when Fox is about to come get you, he runs down the hall. So, in other words, the game is shit at trying to be scary.
scary. Am I saying you can't or shouldn't be allowed to be scared by jump scares or be pulled in by the build-up the game offers?
No.
You can certainly be scared by all that if you are. That's fine. I'm not necessarily saying this game is not scary because that's dependent on the person, really. No, I'm more so saying that if this game is trying to be scary, it's really bad at it because it only builds up to one trick, and that trick doesn't require much effort or talent to get a quick reaction out of the player. Jump scares should be used sparingly and only as supplementary material. That makes them more effective not only because the player expects it less, but also because that means it's not all the game relies on. Honestly, no horror game should solely rely on one type of payoff or one type of scary thing to scare the player anyway. And when you have a horror video game, and the horror part is poorly executed, the game part is at best mediocre and at worst bad, and the world building that tries to tie that all together and that the game places importance on is full of nonsense, contradictions, and makes the audience put in the work for the game for things to make sense, we are left with a mixture of core ingredients and a shit ton of big and little flaws that results in what we in the business of video game quality conclusions call a bad game. Five Nights at Freddy's is insanely flawed in every aspect. This game has some wonderful ideas, and some aspects of how those ideas are executed work decently, but almost every single thing this game does comes with flaws and issues big and small, and this is on top of how the game doesn't have too many strengths to begin with. I don't really think this game is that good. It's not the worst filth possible, it's not some asset reusing or unfinished cash grab without a single modicum of effort or soul put into it, and the game can technically be beaten, it can be played, it has a gameplay loop. I just don't think that after everything I talked about that this game is that good. This conclusion of Five Nights at Freddy's is bad might seem obvious considering how heavily I've been criticizing this game in this video.
So let me immediately confuse you by telling you that I actually like this game and this whole franchise. Yeah. Okay, so like why? Why the fuck do I like this game if I hate it so much?
Well, the main reason I like this game and this whole series isn't necessarily because I think the games are good, at least not anymore. I can find some of them fun, even the ones I'd consider bad. But the main reason I like this series, this particular game, and had the patience to even make this video is because of this cool human ability I have called emotional attachment. This game came out when I was just a mere child, which I'm not anymore. Actually, something that's a little insane to think about. The distance between my birth and this game coming out is the distance between this game coming out and now. Oh my god. Anyway, I was certainly scared by this game when I was younger, but I also found it entertaining to watch. When the whole game is built up to something that's supposed to give you a quick reaction, it can make for very entertaining Let's Plays considering it's literally a Let's Player's job to be entertaining and reactionary while playing a game. Also, a face in the corner made the games way less scary to a younger version of me. I never owned any of the games when I was younger. I only got little chances to play them here or there on other people's computers and whatnot. It always had this unattainable and mystical quality for me, much like many things I couldn't easily get or experience before I was older and could buy whatever I wanted. So I mainly experienced this game and series in general through Let's Plays and YouTube videos for the most part. So not only am I nostalgic for the game, but I also tend to associate this game with other people playing it or talking about it. I love rewatching Markiplier's videos on all of these games, except for Ultimate Custom, I skipped that one. You can say he's embellishing or faking his reactions, but it doesn't change how entertaining I find them. Because he also played a lot of fan games, I also found a lot of the fan games entertaining to watch. Many of them also tend to do the things this game tries to do, but better. I also used to be interested in seeing the fan theories and the plot Scott is or was trying to mold from these games, but I don't really care anymore because I don't even think the developers understand their own story now. Why does this purple motherfucker keep coming back in every game? And also, now that I'm older and actually have all the games and I'm not a baby who's scared to play them, there are games in this series that I have enjoyed my time with. When I first played the VR game, I had an excellent time, as well as the Halloween DLC. That was the first Freddy's game I actually beat firsthand when it came out. I also experienced Security Breach firsthand, and I 100%ed the game when it came out. I also genuinely like Security Breach, even if I also feel it's horribly flawed. Can't wait to discuss that in like 2031. I also enjoyed playing Security Breach Ruin. I even have a poster for this game series because I found it for like $1 at some thrift shop and thought, fuck it. And you bet your ass I'm gonna be playing Help Wanted 2, whatever other game comes out in the series, and I'm gonna see that goddamn movie in theaters. It's going to be a pile of shit, and I'm gonna fucking love it. I like how this video took me 5 fucking months to edit between me finishing the script and me uploading the thing. I did watch the Five Nights at Freddy's movie in theaters, and I did enjoy it to a degree, but it was mostly ironic. And also, I have Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2, and I'm enjoying that, though I'm enjoying that a lot more unironically than the movie. This video was supposed to come out before both of those. So yeah, my experience growing up alongside this franchise and associating it with positive memories, as well as genuinely liking some of the games in this series, as well as Markiplier, makes me absolutely unable to hate it. I have a positive attachment to this game, but if you were to ask me if I think it's good, I would say Lamau, no. So yeah, if you or someone else comes away from this video thinking that I think other people shouldn't be allowed to like this game, they're wrong and stupid and an asshole probably. If you're wondering why I decided to make a video where I'm really negative about a game I like though, is because I like separating how much I like something from how good I find it, and I just don't think the game is very good, and I felt like talking about that even though I like it. You can like things that you think are bad. And Mr. Scott Cawthon, if you're watching this, which, I mean, you might be watching this, I don't know. This video wasn't intended as a personal attack, even though you might interpret it as that. I can't control other people. I just wanted to obsessively assess Five Nights at Freddy's. You know, when you just feel like making a 2.5 hour video about a video game? Yeah, that. And with that, I am finally done this fucking video. This is my first long review in a while, so if you have any feedback and want to tell me how shit this video is, please let me know. I do still want to do more of these, even if this took me way longer to finish than I wanted it to. If you just tell me the video's long, then learn to have less worthless opinions. If you're new here and this is the first video of mine that you've watched, I ask you humbly to please stick around and listen to me self-promote. Check out some of my older videos. If you like long videos, I made long videos before. I made one on Zootopia that I don't like anymore because it's old, but that might just be me. You might like it. I don't know. I also made a video that was 1.5 hours about VHS promos. If you feel like watching that too. I enjoyed making that one. I've also made shorter videos that took slightly less time to make than this one. I will also continue to make shorter videos in the future because for as much as I enjoyed working on this video, I didn't enjoy having to work on it for way longer than I wanted to. Any long video I make in the future, I'll probably do simultaneously with shorter videos, which I didn't do for this video and regret doing that because I'm kind of tired. And if you feel the effort I've put into this video or any of the videos on my channel is worth $1 or more to you, then feel free to give me it on Patreon. I will gladly take your money. And with that sentence, I'm finally done. Hell yeah.